Select Board meeting to order, Monday, February 10th, 2020, 5:41 p.m. Our first item is a 6-month performance review of Daniel Morgan. Is there a motion to?
I'll make a motion to go in executive session.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And we're inviting
Yes?
Stuart.
It's your motion?
Yep, to amend the thing, we're inviting Stuart and Dean and Peter.
Okay.
And you get to sit out here.
Well, no. How is that how it went? No, I said
And it's Daniel's review, so Daniel's will definitely
included.
Included.
I'm happy to
Included.
stay outside
Yeah.
of the room if you like.
Yeah.
Don't, well, okay, however you want
What's
to do
it's
it.
your motion?
I don't know, we usually
Yeah.
invite the,
Yes.
I'm happy to have it included, makes total sense.
Great.
yeah,
That's
No.
a good sign.
I hope so.
That is a good sign.
good
We just stand by the microphone back there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
Do we just sit or do we go to one of
There's a conference
We're
room
going into
in the
the
back.
conference room.
Yeah. Okay, next
Cause some
on
trouble.
the agenda, we're having a joint meeting with the Recreation Commission. The goal here is to really talk about, for the Select Board to get feedback from Recreation Commissioners about how to adapt the roles of the commission and the director, since the town moved from moved the director to have a lot more responsibilities on a day-to-day basis. And what our hope is to get feedback from the commission on ways to improve the commission experience, and also to kind of find out what the priorities and kind of the as Bill always says, that it's the commission of fun. So we're really looking to hear about what are the fun parts of the commission that you really want to spend more time focusing on, so that we can come up with roles and responsibilities that synergize with the new director's responsibilities.
Sorry, right?
Yeah, please.
I believe the current lady is our 5th commissioner. I actually don't remember when we started, was it 10 years ago or 12 years ago or whatever? We did this, the reason being that everything went through the school at the time, and we were paying $1.40 for every dollar that got spent for programs like are happening now, so to save money. And it's been expanded a lot since then. We would like to have, I'll speak for myself, we would like to have more interaction with this person. I mean, we all live in the town. I've been on the commission for like 34 years and stuff, and evolved through all this stuff. And we'd like to have a lot of input, and we have different expertise in our commission. And the commissioner, she did show up for budget planning and stuff like that, and we're sure that was going to happen, but we're glad it did, and so we had some feedback. But I can't remember before then when the last time that our meeting that's open to the public as well, when she showed up and had some interaction with us. You know, we got some programs we'd like to weigh in on, ask her how they're doing, just to be informed on what's going on as well.
Is the commission currently running programs?
No, she is.
Okay, got it. So it's having input into some of the town programs.
Yeah,
Got
yeah,
it.
and also her expanded role and how we fit in. Well, one of the programs that's happening that Bill's a primary driver of, I've helped a little bit, is the ice rink, you know, and I don't think she knows anything about that. So, unless I'm wrong, has she showed up with information or something? So, just be nice to have more interaction, and so we can hear what she thinks going on, and we can let her know what we would like to see happening. So,
Great, that's great.
There are other programs, if I may, that are run by commission members. I do pickleball.
Oh, really?
And
How would we
adult
possibly
tennis.
have known that?
You're the face
I
of
don't know.
pickleball.
He's never
Okay.
there.
We would like to have you out whacking the ball. During the days of the coordinator, the reporting relationship was the coordinator to the town administrator, from the town administrator to the select board. My understanding is now it's directly to the select board. I've worked in county government a number of years and never heard of such an arrangement for that kind of position, and would like to see it restored, frankly, to the town administrator. I think that's the responsible thing to do. It's in terms of being able to communicate, to know what's going on. The amount of volunteer activity I've seen from this commission is unsurpassed. I mean, these people work, not just talk, work. They're out there doing stuff. And I think they deserved that interaction, that respect, and a relationship which is fundamentally more professional than what it is right now.
What are the main, the heavy lifts on the volunteer hours? What are the activities that the commission is really engaged in, hands-on?
Hands-on, well, there's the pickleball, there's the adult tennis. There are the tennis programs for youth that are run by one of the commissioner's spouses, which are very active. You've got your disc golf out there, which doesn't take a lot of time except for clipping and pruning and all of that. There is the being present for the Cross Lake swims, being present for all of the things that Bill has done and organized. The wonderful concerts we have in the summer,
Town party.
Town
the
party.
town party.
A couple of us here volunteered, Rich in particular, put quite a lot of time in on building the little hut down there for
Right,
the beach
absolutely.
attendants.
Yep.
A lot about it.
Maintenance,
Last year.
Maintenance of the playground, cleaning up, setting up the nets, taking them down, trying to fix the court in our own unprofessional manner, William and I, that sort of thing.
Great, thank you. I mean, a lot of what we're looking at here is getting feedback on the nuts and bolts and then coming up with a way to improve the interactions. Is there, Bill?
Something that you mentioned, Matt, when you first started speaking was that there was a change that occurred in when the directorship position was created, and there was a change of responsibility at that point. Did you mention that? Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah, when it went from a coordinator position to a director position.
Okay.
And the select board at the time reevaluated the job on the Palmer study because the responsibilities increased. And then shortly after that, I think the hours increased again with more responsibility to be managing the beach attendants.
What I would like to point out then is that in the past, the Recreation Commission has always been involved in any of those changes. And in this particular situation, we were not consulted in any form whatsoever. And also the job description was changed, as far as I know, without any correspondence with the Rec Commission or with any input from the Rec Commission. It seemed, if I'm correct, and it's been a while now, so I may not be remembering correctly, but it seemed to come from the Select Board.
So Bill, the point, I want to make sure I understand your point.
Yeah.
Your point is when the changes for the director were made, both the reporting and the scope of responsibilities, the commission was not fully engaged in that. Is that the point you guys want to make?
Wasn't engaged at all.
Okay,
all,
got it.
yeah.
Okay.
And it was unusual in the past, we have also been engaged in, and I like the use of that word, the review process, the hiring process, and that now seems to have been sidelined / dispelled from our
Beach
purview.
attendants. beach attendants?
Yeah, we were always involved in the hiring beach attendants, in that process. You know, consulted. Again, it's not like we were doing it, it was like we were part of the process. And knowing that we have 8 or 9 resourceful local people, we have always thought that the integration of that 8 or 9 local resourceful people who have kids in the community would be a tremendous resource to that process, the process of hiring beach attendants, number 1. And also being part of a review/hiring process.
Okay. Other thoughts from commissioners? Rich?
It seems that our relationship with the director is very blurry.
Did you say boring?
Blurry.
Blurry.
It can't be boring because we don't really have much correspondence. I don't think there's really any clarity on our part in terms of exactly what the director's responsibilities are, how they relate to us, how we relate to the director. It's like 2 different entities kind of overlapping on occasion. And I think that for the amount of property that we are responsible for and managing and facilities that we care about improving at whatever pace we're able to finally get them improved, that we should have a lot more interaction with the director. The director should be present at all of our meetings as part of a job description and not on as one might feel like it approach. And so I guess the sense that I've been getting from our previous meeting and comments is just that we might be a little bit frustrated.
I'd like to pick up on your point about the blurry relationship, and we've been spending the better part of a year mostly working with Bill and Nicole, and now we're kind of broadening the discussion, and the select board's been working on creating a better format, because the previous one is largely undefined. We tried to go back and look at the roles and responsibilities of the commission and when it was formed, and there's some charge there to the commission and what the commission is supposed to be doing in the town. But most of it is really historical, of what the commission has done, has defined what it is doing and wants to continue to be doing. So I think what we're really looking to do here is to work with the commission to come up with a more defined structure and more defined responsibilities, and then to see how those can mesh with the pretty clear responsibilities in the director's in job description. So I think the work that we have moving forward is to develop that mission statement for the commission and to have it be one that's catered to what the current commissioners would like to be doing most. And then future commissioners will have something a little more clear to go by. But
Yeah, I was struck when I started looking into all these issues that the mission, I'm not sure that's the right word, for the commission was very old. So actually, I think, I don't want to step out of bounds here, but I think input from you all about what you think the commission's mission would be helpful, because the only document that I could find was one that was quite old and was not, I absolutely agree, it was not in sync with the director's job description. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's something that we've been working on and
kind of opening up the collaborative process to have that, because without it, it's just hard, like you said, it's blurry, it's hard to know. If you have 10 people, you have 10 expectations. Whereas if you have kind of one mission and one job description, we can really weave, a interpersonal relationship that I think people can have a sense of.
When we were initially formed, Valerie Graham was one of the select board members. the town had been levying impact fees on developing developments, and each lot was assessed $1,000 fee that was paid when the building permit was acquired. And they thought they had this accumulating fund, so they better make a committee that would oversee some of it. So that was already in action by the time they formed we were a committee. Yeah, not sure what our job description as a commission is, but different. But and we started, running I was the second chair of the committee. We ran the beach, and we hired and did a lot of stuff that's going on. We didn't, the scope was, the scope of programs and stuff was minimal, the regular stuff that had been going on. But built the shed up at the skating rink. That was one of our projects that we did, and it goes on for a bit. So.
Do you know what type of budget that levied? Do you have any memory of that? Of the $1,000 impact fee?
Oh, we had, I think the last big chunk got soaked up in the Burns property purchase. And the only rules, and actually we've talked to Steve Stitzel about this as well, the only thing that we couldn't do is we couldn't use funds from that for maintenance. It was for capital purchasing. We put in some bike path, like between the corner of Old Route 7 and Charlotte Heinsberg Road, basically down to the railroad tracks. And when we had that, and we had that fund to work out.
The tennis courts, I think, were put in under that funding too, weren't they? Or were they later?
Yeah, they probably were, because they were upgraded and redone, yeah. So.
It was several $100,000 that
Over the years,
certain
yeah.
points, yeah.
A fee, and
No, you asked about
the fund balance, yeah, how
the
big
fund
it got.
balance was-
And then that impact fee just stopped being,
it was made, there was some challenges to it legally.
The town never adopted a capital program on what we need for beach, the new beach house when that happens, all that stuff. So, attorney, actually for 10 Stones, challenged it and stopped it.
You have to have a long-term capital plan in order
Yeah.
to collect impact
We're
fees.
supposed to have a capital budget
And it's not like, this year we do this, it's like a 10-year plan, and you're with a budget, and you're collecting your fees against that. And
Got
I
it.
think Kerry mentioned previously that, we used to have a capital plan. I think the select board, before my time, made attempt at having a capital plan, but it didn't qualify. It wasn't detailed and far out enough to qualify for impact fees. But I think that's always something to look into. I hear interaction is a common word. You think written, verbal, internet, email? Is there any way that this interaction could take place? I mean, when you talk evening meetings and volunteers and daytime payroll and all that other stuff, some of it's not going to work out too well. Is there any thought to how you would like to see that interaction?
It's helpful when we get the update of what's happening in the rec department. Just the programs that are running and what's happening that Nicole's working on, so that's helpful. And just the face-to-face interaction is also helpful.
You mentioned relationship a couple of times. You mentioned it, and you mentioned interaction, which is a relationship. I am a huge proponent of this whole thing being resolved as a result of increased interaction / relationship. I'm a huge believer personally in communication, phone calls, texting, meetings. I would love to have in the summer when we're busy and we've got stuff going on in projects. I'd like to suggest a weekly meeting with Nicole, just to say, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is what the commission is wanting to do, and I would love to know what you're doing on a weekly basis. And I just think that if the two of us sat down, even on an as-needed basis, it doesn't have to be scheduled. Hey, what are you doing? Can we meet? That kind of thing. I think a lot of the the issues of interaction / relationship could be clarified, maybe. The more people talk, I find the better the relationship ends up being.
We updated the brochure a year or so ago, and on one of the panels, it says a description of the commission, so that might be helpful.
Oh, I've actually seen that.
Okay.
But I would love to have it, if you want to give it to me.
Sure. It's
No, I was just,
it's not a final one, it's a,
I was just struck by the fact that there was not harmony between, I think I've seen this poster. And again, I don't want to overstep my bounds here, but any ideas that you have for roles and responsibilities, I'd love to hear. And the other thing I wanted to say is I'm so impressed with the work that you guys do. I mean, the beach is a gem. The skating rink is well used. And so I just want to, from my own perspective, thank you. Because I drive by that beach every day, so twice a day, and it looks good.
Communication is a big piece of what we're talking about here. And I like the concept of overlapping circles. To the extent the circles overlap, if you think about them being totally overlapping, so it looks like one circle versus being completely separate, I think there's not enough overlap now. I think we need to increase the degree of overlap so there's more joint planning, communication, things that you would take for granted between a commission and a director. More meetings, more communication. That's the heart of the matter here.
One of the things that I've experienced on the select board, and we meet a minimum twice as often as the rec commission, if not more, is a structural deficiency in productivity, because no decisions can be made without a quorum. And it has to be recorded, and the minutes have to be posted, and there's all these open meeting minutes laws. Those are constraints on productivity. And the efficiency of having a director who's here every day, 5 days a week, working on producing programs, maintaining subcontractors, keeping scheduling, making on-the-fly adjustments to attendance and program cancellations, just day-to-day things is a very productive model. And figuring out a way to have a volunteer once a month decision-making body be able to interact and communicate in a way that still is in line with open meeting laws is, I think, where a lot of what we need to figure out lies. It may be a higher frequency of commission meetings if you want to have that input, because these decisions can't be made by the commission unless it's done by majority vote at an open meeting. So I think what we're looking at is structurally, how do we look at the roles and responsibilities that might be more natural to less frequent meetings, and have the commission do more of that type of heavy lifting, and the day-to-day decision-making that have to be made from an executive point of view or an executive capacity be done by someone who's empowered by the select board to make those decisions every day. And so I think structurally that's, I think, a tension that we feel and work with Dean on. And sometimes we delegate, to Dean because something might need to be signed in 3 days and we're not going to meet again. So there's that piece to this that we're working into the relationship.
I think we work within the confines of all of the meeting rules and stuff like that. I can't remember when the last time we didn't have a quorum for a meeting, and but we do like more interaction. We'd like to feel like we're just not adrift, and when there's a problem, we get a call or whatever, particularly Bill, but also just weigh in on some of what's going on.
There's an inherent problem that the fire department experienced and is getting better with having volunteers and paid people, paid staff interact with similar job things. I don't know how I could describe putting a finger on it, but it's different than having a group of employees that you deal with or having a group of volunteers. When you put the two together, there's, I don't know how you would say it, weird stuff that happens that comes up and it's like some people don't understand the other ones, and I've been trying to think if there's lessons learned that could be applied to this situation.
Let me
There may be.
just make a couple observations. One, and they may not be popular, so forgive me, but there is, take a look at the playground.
Lovely.
That was built by volunteers with some professional help. But it was the heavy lifting, the cement bags, all of that was done by volunteers. And the commission members were probably some of the principal cement bag weighers and lifters and pourers. And I know I did 38 in one 2-hour block. We have, I'm looking out at what's going to happen with development at the beach. Are we going to have petanque courts? I don't know. We went and got a bid and asked for additional bids, but I don't know where we stand on that. I should know that as a member of the commission. I've been away, but I should still know that as a member. I don't. I'm going to make one other point, and this will be very sensitive, and I apologize for it, but I want to make it because I think it's something the entire town feels. There is here and there is there, and they don't communicate. And I feel she's there, not part of here,
Not part of here, what does that mean?
not part of this part of the building. That was my original point. I think
What does that have?
my
to do with-
experience, there is a tension between that office and the other office. You may not want to recognize it, maybe you don't recognize it, but it's there. The town feels it. Everybody I've talked to has made observations about it. We can do better than that.
So are you?
That's my point, was
so-
that she should be reporting.
So are you saying
to the
that
town
the rec
administrator.
commission is part of this group and the rec director is part of that group?
Correct.
Okay. Just
And one of the
clarifying.
ways you overcome that is by having her reporting to the town administrator. Now, Dean, I've never talked to Dean about this, but I feel very strongly about it, based on my experience in Portland, Oregon, seeing something fairly similar a number of years ago.
Okay.
Okay, I'll shut up now.
No, no,
Well,
that's,
I just
Go
wanted
away.
no,
to,
no, no, that's
I mean, this is what
legit.
feedback is
No,
for.
it's Absolutely
Just
legit.
clarifying.
I just wanted to ask about the should know piece. If you have a question about something that involves recreation, where do you go first?
I would go to Bill.
Okay, and then if you wanted to know where that bid was, you would ask Bill, and if you didn't get the answer, then you would ask Nicole.
No,
Or I
no,
would ask Nicole and find the answer.
What should,
So
what-
the-
no,
what-
I would go to Bill.
could it be something that is asked of Nicole and submitted to the rec commission at their meeting? There shouldn't be, to me, it shouldn't be just directed to, I want information. If it's something that you feel is the rec commission should know,
Right.
then it should be
right.
something that should come from Nicole to your rec commission meeting, which right now happens once a month.
Yeah,
A little less in the winter, but
I've been away, so my apologies.
Yeah.
Part of my
I think-
question on interaction, I mean, is it like a weekly report, written, email, print?
The format doesn't matter much, it's the communication.
When we have our,
It happens in the
meetings,
frequency.
we have our meetings once a
The
month.
frequency helps too.
Right.
We would expect her to be there,
Well,
whoever the
possibly.
rec commissioner
Well,
is.
possibly, but I mean, the main thing is that I see is that you guys should be getting your information at your meetings.
And by by telephone communication and email.
Email, there's other formats,
Sure.
there's a variety of formats. You know, it's more, it's not how the message is delivered, it's delivering the message consistently.
They're even into some of
So there should be
public
a
meeting
time
part.
frame. So there should be a time frame. Should it be in the rec director's job description to say that she has to submit a report to the rec commission every week or every month, or, I mean, should that be part
I
of
think the
this?
beginning of the month would be good before we meet as a commission to have update from the director.
Reports are good, but emails, when they go into a discussion amongst, is a public
Open meeting.
open meeting no-no.
I don't
You
think-
can't discuss, so when I'm thinking about the interaction, I mean reports. I mean, you can disseminate information, you can go back and say, this is my report, and the committee can say, well, this is our report. And then at a meeting, they can discuss and work, but they can't.
No, we've been very
It's a pain
clear
in the
about that.
butt.
We've been very clear about that, Fritz, and what we've asked of the director is a weekly update via email of not just a discussion, a report, as you mentioned. And that, just a weekly update.
I guess I hope, and if this isn't true, I think it's something we should build into the structure of the commission. I hope everyone on the commission feels engaged enough to be able to call or email Nicole directly, who's working 5 days a week, with any question you have. I don't think waiting for a monthly meeting to find an answer out is beneficial. So,
Oh, no, we don't.
so if people have
Generally, what happens in our
questions,
meetings,
yeah.
We have a meeting and we discuss, probably just like you do, about things that have happened in the past. And then we discuss and plan for the future.
Right.
And it's the implementation of the future that we are then interested in and acting on. And that, I think, is where a meeting with Nicole, and again, can I ask you, can Nicole and I meet and discuss? Is that part of an open meeting restriction, or?
No, so we can go over the open meeting law again, but basically it can't be a quorum of the body. So there are 9 people on your committee, 4 people can discuss something. As long as they don't discuss that with a 5th person, that creates a meeting that's occurring not in the open.
So I was misunderstanding. I thought you were getting at that Nicole and I couldn't meet as individuals, and discuss.
Nope.
Just taking action, you can discuss, but you can't.
You can't make decisions on behalf of the commission without a vote of the commission.
But what I'm saying is that if at the last meeting, we as a committee, as we always do, act upon, make decisions, and then I act to implement those decisions that have already been made with Nicole.
Correct. And you're empowered to do so when the commission votes on that. Like sometimes we get contracts and it'll be, this is the simplest scenario. Someone makes a motion to approve A, B, and C and authorize the chair to sign. That would be the same type of motion that the commission would be happening. Someone makes a motion to go ahead and get some pricing on, tree limbing, and empower Bill to do that.
I think regular meetings with her would be really helpful, though. You can email, you can do this, but just face-to-face contact and having a quorum of commissioners there, and you can have a discussion. I can't do that because of that. Oh, okay, now we understand better, or whatever, or we really feel like this program, we should maybe add this to it, or think about this as a future program. But, and that's the type of thing I think you can really have, like the interaction we're having right now.
Right.
And let everybody, that communication level. So.
Yep. So I want to move, we don't have a ton of time, but I do want to move into a little more of the nuts and bolts. We touched on it a little, but while you're all here, if I could hear from the commissioners of what are the things you really enjoy doing most being a commissioner, and then if there are things that you want to be doing, what would those things be? And then we can kind of use that to optimize the commission's mission, basically.
Can I say something?
Of course.
I wish you would.
I guess I'm frustrated because when I came back here as a rec director, my job description was laid out, and it's quite thorough, and I thought that everyone received my job description and read it, and part of that job description does say that I attend the meetings quarterly. Therefore, that would mean only 4 times I would attend a meeting. And so then I would still try to attend meetings. But I have a son, and I am a single mom 5 days a week. So it's me sometimes finding childcare at the last minute because the chair has decided to change the meeting last minute. It does not give me that flexibility that I used to have to attend some of these meetings. I spoke with Judy, who said, yeah, if you could start sending out those weekly updates again, that would be great. So I started to do that. But it's frustrating to me because I think that there are some misconceptions that are going on here, that people aren't actually having communications with me. And I've had a couple of commissioners actually come and speak to me, which I think is great because you only see one side of one coin when you are in a group. There are things that go on that people don't know. They just know when they attend a meeting. There are things that I have decided as, what I thought was in the best interest of this town based on my ability, and that is what I was hired to do, or at least that's what I thought I was hired to do. And some people didn't like the decisions I made, and so here we are at. I didn't make the decision to have a different supervisor, and I tend to work with certain sides of the office because I'm with them daily. They collect all of my money, and we now work on online registration, so then that's what we do. It's frustrating too that the commission chair has actually told me when I've communicated things, oh, you don't need to tell the rec commission that, you can just go through me. But then again, I just find it, interesting that people are having a conversation, and I'm sorry that the commission feels that I don't want to work with them, because that is not what I'm here to do. I try to do the best job that I can do. I communicate whenever there's a cancellation with pickleball, the school will contact me. Lately, they haven't been because of all their changes. I have gone to the school constantly to try to get the facility usage costs down because I thought it was ridiculous. I could have just left it. I do what I think is best for this town, and sometimes it may not be agreeable because as times change, we have to up our insurance or we have to change things so that we are okay. Because it's a sue-happy country that we live in now, unfortunately, and so that we have to make rules and we have to establish things. I never try to withhold anyone any information. Anyone that wants to speak to me can email me or contact me. But again, in the job description, and if the rec, I had nothing to do with setting that up, and I feel like sometimes right now we're creating this precedent that I sat here, created this job description, I created this job, and now I'm just going with it. I am simply just going with what I have. If I can attend a meeting, I'm going to attend one. But like I said, if meetings are changed at the last minute, unfortunately, I cannot make them, or I am bringing my son with me who's 2 years old. So I think that it's really important to know that there is a level of disrespect that is going on as well that no one seems to know or discuss. And sitting here today, I thought that the point of this meeting was not to talk about what the rec director wasn't doing. We were going to discuss how we can work together as the director and the commission to make this happen, make this a good unit. And I'm not thinking that that's the case. And I think that if there was an issue that had happened at the last meeting, I wish that I was present to address it, because I think that that's how we handle things professionally. But to sit here, all of these frustrations, I think is getting a little ridiculous.
Thank you for your input. We are a little constrained to touch on issues of personnel issues. That's something that is best left to executive session, and so I just want to tread lightly here. I want to agree with what you're saying, that the select board, not this select board, but a select board created that job description and hired you for that position. And every iteration of select boards that's been voted in since has thought that your work is great and that you've been adapting to the new roles and responsibilities that were created by that select board when the position changed from a coordinator to this new director position. I think the work that needs to happen and the intent of this meeting is to find a way to have a better working relationship with a commission with an undefined mission and with a director that has a very clear job description. One of the things that we can do moving forward is have each commissioner see the job description and know what the roles and responsibilities are. And I think based on the time, there's more collaborative work to do here, and I'd like to schedule another meeting once everyone's clear on what those roles and responsibilities are. We can come back and look at what do we want the roles and responsibilities of the commission to be. My sense is the most productive thing to do would be to have the commissioners think about what they enjoy doing the most, volunteering for the town with the rec commission, and let's build that into the commission's mission.
And in fairness, there is not consistency between what we have on paper for the role of the commission and the director. And I've taken a lot of time to go through that, and there's just not consistency. So I'm going to echo what Matt said, and to the extent that the commission can give us input about what they think, what you guys think their role should be, that would be very helpful.
Well, there was not contact between the commission and the select board when the job description was made. So perhaps a committee review of the job description, better late than never. Maybe one-year meetings, you can sit down and go through the job description and say, yeah, no, are you crazy kind of thing.
Right.
So,
Or maybe state that should be part of the rec commission's
yeah,
mission.
just to opine on the job description and where you think it isn't going to work or will work.
Well, if I might just address one item in the job description, which is supposedly not, or well, clear to the rec director, but maybe not clear, was the meeting. If you read the section that describes the meetings, it does say to the effect that the rec director will schedule with the chairperson a minimum of 4 meetings per year. Am I reading that correctly, Nicole? Something like that. Now, was that the select board's directive that the rec commission meets a minimum of 4 times a year with the rec director? Or was it that the rec director attends a minimum of 4 meetings per year?
I think the 4 came, if I remember correctly, came from the idea of having quarterly meetings from a fiscal reporting standpoint. Where are we this quarter? Whereas
because we've always had monthly meetings, or in the winter they go to maybe every 2 months. But
and again, that's to the point I raised about having someone who's working 5 days a week and has that kind of executive authority to make decisions every day of the week versus a commission that meets somewhat regularly and isn't empowered to be making decisions in the interim.
And the difference between paid and volunteer. Paid, I go to work, this is my job, at the end of the day, I go home. I'm not volunteering for this. It's a different motivation, it's a different time schedule, employees across the street. When I have to have a meeting with the paid EMTs, it's during business hours. But people who are on a committee probably don't want to do that. They want to do it in the evenings. So there's things that get in the way that aren't obvious, but they're there.
you were just asking about clarity, and that's an area where I don't think there's clarity right now. The rec director is inferring that she only has to come to 4 meetings a year, and it could be interpreted that way. I don't disagree.
Well, I guess, my suggestion would be at the next meeting, have a suggestion of what you think would be most productive.
Sure.
Did you ever come up with a meeting schedule?
Yes, the second Tuesday of every month, unless we decided the previous meeting not to meet the next time.
But shouldn't we have Nicole's input as well? We're asking the
Absolutely.
commission.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an
She should.
iterative process.
I'll tell you, I have now reached out, and we have always set those meeting dates. And in light of a feedback from Nicole, I have now scheduled the last 2 or 3 meetings solely with her. Like, can you make this meeting? So I'm trying to reach out to her first and seeing, assuming making that contact happen, and then the rec commission will hopefully have a quorum for that date. So I'm
Shouldn't your meetings always be the same
well,
every the second Tuesday like all the other
yeah,
committees?
and that's something that
Because
we-
then that way you can plan ahead of time, a month ahead of time, 3 months at a time.
Yeah.
But on the second Tuesday of June, I've got a
It's just,
meeting.
it's much more productive for us as a commission to meet when we have the rec director present.
But if you had a monthly, every month, the same time,
Right.
Grange does it.
That's what
All
we've
of the
done,
committees.
and it hasn't worked out.
Okay,
for-
well, there's
for-
part of the
the
problem, that
director's
it's not
schedule.
set time, maybe. Thank you.
So when's your next regularly scheduled meeting?
When you say we can have one.
Didn't we go over the open?
No,
We
you,
merged this discussion, we touched on that tonight.
Okay.
But did you say, Bill, every second Tuesday of
Every
the month?
the second Tuesday of every month.
At what time?
6 o'clock.
Yeah, I think set the next agenda when you want. Dean, the select board approves every year the,
Schedule.
no, the, it's the modified Robert's Rules of Order for small boards.
Or it's your own version of the roles and responsibilities.
Yep, and so that applies to all commissions and committees. If we could get a copy of that to the commission for their meeting, and then also the open meeting law statute. If you loop me in on that meeting, I can go over, we're out of time here, but I can go over the ins and outs of the open meeting law, and how we can kind of, that was the second piece of what we wanted to discuss tonight, is how we can meet those requirements moving forward. Both with minute
Yeah, Dean has
taking.
been pretty clear with me and the commission as to how we are to follow those rules.
Right.
And I think for the last few meetings, if not the last few years of meetings, we've been pretty close. The minutes have not been published on the website accordingly, but they will be.
Great,
I'm hoping with Nicole's help.
great. Well, thank you all for coming.
Thank you for everything you do for the town.
And I think after your next meeting, which I'll attend, we can set up a time to come back.
Yeah. To end on an optimistic note, I would think we are all here tonight, except for Christie. Christie did write a letter, I think you
Yep.
have a
Yes,
copy
we
of
have
that
it.
letter. And I would like to end with the optimism that we have all brought to the Rec Commission for the last 30, however many years Craig has been involved, 30-odd years, of having fun in town, making fun things happen, and it's something we would like to bring back to the working relationship with our rec director. If that's a suitable summary, make it fun again
Great,
for all concerned. Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.
You've got to get to your pickleball. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We're a little ahead of schedule. Is anyone here for public comment?
You have a 6:55 item?
What's that?
6:55 item?
Oh, thank you.
Oh, the interview, Willie Tobin.
Willie Tobin? Yeah. Hi, welcome. You're here to interview for the vacancy on the Conservation Commission for a term ending April 30th, 2023.
Mel Huff wrote a note on behalf of Linda Radmer that's on the table.
Yes.
Supporting the appointment of Willie.
Could you describe a little of your interest in being on the Conservation Commission?
Yeah, I was just looking for opportunities to become involved in conservation locally, and saw the vacancy posted on the town website. I do some other volunteer conservation work for the Vermont Center for Eco Studies. I've volunteered for them for the last 3 or 4 years, and just something that's important to me, and looking for an opportunity to be of service and engaged in that respect. So.
Highly recommended.
Thanks that way.
I don't know if you guys have any other questions.
That was the first commission I was on, was the Conservation Commission.
Where do I live? Oh, I live on Upper Old Town Trail. Yeah, right out at the end, last house there.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Is there a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve Willie Tobin for vacancy on the Conservation Commission ending April 30th, 2023.
Second?
I'll second it. Oh, did you? I'm
there
sorry. Did you get there first? Okay.
All those in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Well, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
But is that board fully,
No, they have one more vacancy.
anybody else want to volunteer?
My husband's coming. I just want to go make sure he's okay.
Public comment?
Just, would you mind speaking up just a little bit? It's a little hard to hear in the back.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep. I guess we can start. 7:05 agenda item, consideration of revised net metering agreement to provide electricity credits from the Vernon West Road 2 GLC Solar LLC project to town buildings and the fire rescue station.
Matt,
Hi.
my husband's coming, and I'm afraid he's not very mobile. I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna take.
Do you want us to wait? Yeah.
I'm just gonna make sure he's
Yeah.
not lost in the
Till
park.
7:05.
No.
Yes, but I'll take it. We're just gonna wait a couple of minutes for Louise to come back. Please? Oh, yeah, sure.
He found it.
Oh, good.
I thought he left it, but it's not.
Okay.
set, he's here.
We're just waiting for Carrie. All right, still early. Thanks for coming back.
We can waste some time someday.
Does that mean we get 45 minutes instead of 30?
Yeah, what do we have allotted? I think.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to start out saying that I'm a little surprised we're here again, but we are. Last meeting, I made a motion to accept the proposal that was presented, and I did it. I was pretty apprehensive about doing it because I'm sitting here and I'm being asked to commit the town to a 20-year contract to spend money, and I have one proposal. I made the motion, I voted for it, and in hindsight, I'm still nervous about that. I mean, I don't normally expect people for me to spend their money and have looked at one option. I mean, if I'm gonna go out and buy a car, I'm gonna get two prices. If I'm gonna go here, our purchasing policy even says that we get this. The original RFP that we sent out was for panels on the library roof with the caveat that we may need to agree to net metering to get somebody to do that. That was the RFP that went out, not an RFP to see if anybody's interested in selling credits to the town of Charlotte. So just as a start, that's what made me nervous and what still does about committing to this contract.
Just before you answer or respond, John, we have enough people here. It happens a few times a year. It's really encouraging. I'm glad we have this much interest in something democratically related. But I would like to set the tone that this is still a select board meeting. Select board members are discussing this between and amongst themselves. And as much as possible, my job is to facilitate having the public input at appropriate times. I really want to limit crosstalk and any interactions from residents or people visiting this meeting between each other. I want just it's form and custom to have people address the select board directly with their comments. So, John?
Well, just to address that comment, there was an RFP that went out to a number of companies. It was publicly announced as normal. It was done in accordance with the town's purchasing policy. Received 2 responses to it. The select board voted in favor of Green Lantern's proposal. There were 2 components to the proposal. One was to put panels on the library roof, and the other was to supply net metering credits to town buildings and fire and rescue. The panels on the library roof ended up not working out because of the fire marshal's requirements, and so we then switched to focusing on the net metering credits to supply town buildings and fire and rescue. And the one change we made was to wrap the expected electricity use from the library into that net metering credits agreement. So that's what got us to this point.
I would have to reread the original RFP. I thought it was predominantly for the purpose of putting panels on the roof of the library project, and that the net metering may be necessary to encourage a developer to do that. I perhaps would be the first time I got it wrong.
That was certainly the thinking when we were going out there, because we were looking to get panels installed on the library roof at no upfront cost to the town, if you recall. And that was a pretty small project as far as these projects go. So in order to make it more attractive to potential developers, we added in, the kilowatt hours associated with the town buildings and fire and rescue. So that was our thinking. Our concern was that we weren't going to get anyone responding to the RFP. And as it turned out, we got 2 responses. And then, as I said, things changed. Our initial focus was on the library.
Can you remind me who the second,
Beg your pardon?
who was the second proposal from? I can't remember.
It was Norwich Solar Technologies.
And why do you think only 2 companies?
We didn't pick only 2 companies.
No, but how come only 2 responded?
Well, there are only a small number of companies in Vermont that do this sort of work, and the RFP went out to 4 of those, and I followed up with all of them. 2 of them responded, 2 of them weren't interested. It was too small for them, or, they just weren't interested in finding someone to do the rooftop panels. They did the net metering credits part of it. And as I said, the RFP was publicized in the way that all of the town's RFPs are, on the website and with notice in either the News or the Citizen.
Well, that's part of my concern, is the original RFP said you're gonna install a system and you might buy some net metering credits. We didn't send out an RFP saying you don't have to install the system, we just wanna know if you got net metering credits to sell. I don't know if anybody will respond to that differently or not, but I don't have the option of seeing that because I have 1 proposal. I don't know, I haven't done any homework into how many people, how many organizations there are in the state of Vermont that can sell net metering credits. There might be, 2 that responded with the intent that they also would have to at least look at building something on the roof of the library. There may be some that didn't want to build any more projects but still had credits to sell. I don't know. If an RFP went out with that language, I would know. If only 1 came back, that nobody else wants to do that. But I don't think that was an opportunity for anybody who has credits to sell that wasn't building panels, is something I don't know about. So now this agreement is down to just buying credits, which in my mind, just my mind, was not what the original RFP was for, because it included the construction part of it.
I hear what you're saying. Sam, did you?
Which was originally just to look at what it would be for the library, not the approval to put it on the library.
Yes.
Sam?
All I can say is what we received. We received an RFP that said we want 2 proposals. It wasn't 1 proposal, it was 2 proposals. 1 proposal was to put a solar array on the roof of the library, on the addition, that we would finance, it wouldn't cost the town a penny, that we would then sell those net metering credits to the town, and hopefully we would be able to recover our upfront investment. To make that happen, it needed to be a large enough array. And as we went through, the fire marshal's concerns about having enough space, the state fire marshal's concerns about having enough space to walk around the roof, made that solar array so small that the costs for us of putting that up there made it impossible for us to be able to offer you any kind of discount on the net metering credits. You wouldn't have been able to save any money. We had that discussion. There was a second component of that RFP, which was for the electricity expenditures that are not the library, for the fire department, for the town hall, for the pump or the sewer or something like that. we would like to see a straight net metering credit agreement. So we submitted 2 net metering credit agreements as part of our response to that RFP. One of them was for the library, and one of them was for the other accounts. So to respond to your question about, why didn't more companies respond, I would guess a lot of them looked at that roof and very quickly said, it's going to be too small. We're not going to be able to do it. We tried. We tried really hard, and we spent a lot of manpower, and we invested a bunch of time with electrical engineers and civil engineers trying to make it work with many different designs. We couldn't make it work. But the RFP that was sent out, it wasn't you can submit for option A or you can submit for option B. It was, we want both, we want 2 net metering agreements. One that was going to cover the library and recover the investor's cost in putting the array up, and one that was much smaller, that was just a straight net metering agreement, which is what you have in front of you.
Maybe we should see that RFP.
Well, that's.
John?
We did, when we met with you in December, and which time we'd learned about the fire marshal's requirements, we did say that the next step would be to focus on the net metering agreement. And there was,
Could you just speak up a little?
I'm sorry. So we did, when we met with you in December and had the information about the fire marshal's requirements making the library rooftop project no longer viable, we did say that we were now going to proceed with the net metering agreement. And there was not opposition to that. There was understanding that that was the path forward, and that was the way that was open to us for getting solar net metering credits for the town buildings and fire and rescue.
Sam?
If I could just address the, why are we back here again? I think it was my response after the last select board meeting where I felt you provided some very fair sort of critique of the initial net metering agreement. You felt it was too long. You felt the exclusivity question about what meters are covered and aren't wasn't sufficiently clear. There was an issue about sort of reciprocity in terms of events for default. If we, the system owner, didn't deliver net metering credits for X number of days, how many days was a reasonable number to expect before there was an event of default? I wasn't in a position 2 weeks ago to be negotiating the net metering agreement in that I had to go back and take your feedback, go back to our team, go back to our lawyer, and go back to our financing people. What can we offer? And then I went back to Dean and said, here's what we're willing to do. If the town wants to consider that, that's fine. We're happy to continue the conversation. So Dean then said, well, send us a revised net metering agreement with those changes and highlight those changes, which we did. So I'm happy to go through those changes, but I guess I'm just trying to explain how we got back here, is that we tried to improve, in a sense, the terms that are being offered to the town, taking the feedback that we got from you 2 weeks ago to make it a better deal.
I think process-wise, if I can move forward with that piece of it, my sense is that from that original RFP, none of the proposal was accepted by the select board. At that point, to me, at the end of the last meeting, and I voted for the net metering agreement as it was before you amended it, that RFP is over. The request to get more input did not come from the board. It came from Dean, and it sounds like, and which is, I think, good, because pursuing a net metering agreement, I think, is important. It's in the town plan. It's probably past due that the town has some type of renewable portfolio by maybe 20 years. So I think it's great we're pursuing this. The concern that has really resonated for me is, have we been fair in the bidding process for a standalone net metering agreement with other people in the field? And that's the piece where, in the purchasing policy, and I was a part of the creation of the purchasing policy 5 years ago, there was a real concern that without one, there was an unpredictable nature of the way Charlotte is going to do business. And that opened us up to people being hesitant to make proposals to the town, because they don't know if they're going to get nickel and dimed, if it's going to be a back and forth, and that municipalities should have very standard practices for doing business with private enterprises. So at this point, to me, it looks like the best thing to do would be to come up with a net metering standalone RFP and have your proposal come in, have other people come out. Since this unsolicited proposal came in, I've received another unsolicited proposal. And in talking with people, I'm trying to figure out what is the most appropriate thing for the town to be judicious in making a net metering agreement that could be a long-term agreement. And so it's not with the intent of changing the terms or your offer. It really is based on how I see the events unfolding, what is the most judicious path forward for the town to make sure that we're following our purchasing policy. And I don't know what other people think about that. This is all new discussion since 2 weeks ago. Yes?
Ruis Mutterfeld. I'm curious, so what I'm hearing is that the select board agrees that the town should contract with somebody for a net metering situation, since we can't put solar panels on the roof and we don't have the money to do it ourselves. So is that what I'm hearing, is that this select board is saying, yes, we want to do that?
Well, a straw poll? That's not correct. That would be my position.
That's Matt's position.
I mean, the town plan does say to enhance the solar, the renewable energies. It doesn't state net metering specifically. We did have proposals within our town plan that talked about solar sites around Charlotte, what prioritizes a solar site. And the planning commission looked at that and came up with ideas of, putting a map together on where the solar sites where they were recommended and where they could be. They put it in they rated them. So it doesn't mean that they have to go net metering. It doesn't mean we don't have to go net metering. It just means that there are possibilities within town too that could be looked at. But the town plan does not say directly net metering.
I'm confused, though. I've always thought net metering means that you have solar or wind or whatever it is, and that you are sending it to Green Mountain Power in this case, and that then Green Mountain charges you for whatever you've used, and if you've created more electricity than you've used, you get a credit. The net metering is the relationship, and people could correct me, it's the relationship you're really having with Green Mountain Power. You're not going to put up a big solar array and then it provides the electricity for the town, because that's too iffy. What happens when there are big storms and there's all that snow on the panels? You're not going to get any electricity. So if you're that's off grid. I lived off grid for 20 years and it's difficult to do. But once we started, we put up some solar panels and got grid tied and got the net metering, and then we made a contract with Suncommon for a bigger array, kind of like this, a 20-year contract. We're assured of continuous electricity. So I don't think if you're gonna put up solar panels or not, you're still gonna net meter, right?
I'm not saying put up solar panels, all I'm doing is clarifying that the town plan does not specifically say that net metering is the only source of renewable energy available to the town.
What else would be a source? It has to come from the electric company.
I understand that, but I mean, there are other, I mean, there's, the renewable source could be anywhere. And there are places in Shalott, if somebody decides they want to create one on their own place or create a bigger solar array like there is on Heinsberg Road.
A grid tie system is different than net metering credits. A grid tie system means that you get credit for what you use, and you've got some left over, you have some credits to sell to something. A straight up net metering credits is I don't have my own system, I'm just buying somebody else's. And I'm not gonna get anything for free, so to speak, because none of it I'm producing. I'm just buying somebody else's extras.
Matt, I have a quick question.
Yes, please.
For Sam. Maybe, Sam, could you tell us what kind of investments you make to create a project like this?
Sure.
So that we understand the context.
Sure. So the particular array that we're talking about is down in Vernon. It's a 500 kilowatt array, which is roughly $1.5 million of investment. Before we can get close to that, we spend about $100,000 to $150,000 in risk capital developing the project. Civil engineers, electrical power engineers, environmental engineers, landscape architects, legal counsel, going through the Public Utility Commission process, getting the permit. Once we have the permit, then we have to go and get finance for that 1.5 million. We have to have the certificate of public good, because no bank's going to lend us money without the certificate of public good. We have to have an executed land lease agreement with the landowner, because the bank isn't going to lend us money if we don't have site control, right? So then we go to VEDA, the Vermont Economic Development Authority, and we say we need to borrow about $750,000 for our $1.5 million array. We put in, depends on the array, depends on our cash flow, maybe $250,000, $300,000 of our own capital. And then we bring in a tax equity investor. That might be an insurance company, it might be a large bank, it might be a private individual who has some money that they want to invest in solar array because those investments generate investment tax credits at both the federal level and the state level. We have what's called a capital stack, where you have our money, VEDA's money, the tax equity investor's money. We get the 1.5 million together. We then order the equipment, build the array, start producing credits, and we start selling those credits to towns, schools, large electricity, private companies like Sugarbush, Mount Snow, Smugs. Most of our net metering agreements, I think we have about 35 net metering agreements with towns and schools around the state. Shelburne, Virgins, Essex, Colchester, Randolph, Bethel, Royalton, Cambridge, Johnson, Castleton, and there's demand for these net metering credits right now. Just to be transparent. You guys say no, tomorrow I call up 2 towns that are standing by. Their select board is looking at net metering agreements tonight, saying, and they've said we want them. So I'll just go to a different town. These other towns have looked at these things and said, These are opportunities for us to save money on our electricity costs at no upfront cost, and we support Vermont's renewable energy objectives, and so it's. Did I answer your question?
It was really, that was very helpful.
Yes.
Nancy Richardson. I just have a question about leadership. We have a town plan that says we need to be moving into the 21st century. We have an energy plan that says we need to do it, but so often we get bogged down in obfuscation. And I understand the process has to be legal, but what can the select board members tell me that gives me confidence that you are with the town plan, you are with the energy plan, and you intend to move us into the 21st century and help with climate change?
Well, I think one thing would be what we discussed. Not only do we have the town plan, we have a purchasing policy. And if you put the two of those together, the thing for us to do is to determine that, yes, we want to look at net meterings. Let's put out an RFP.
You can't slow the process down by obfuscating all of the time and distracting. If you're the leadership of the select board, you need to come up with a plan that helps us. So why have you not done so?
Why have we not put out an RFP for net metering credits?
It wasn't before. I mean, it just came before the board.
It originally.
When the library basically asked for their solar panels, and then we went into net metering.
We can keep some order here. I'll recognize you in a second.
Because I don't think that was the question.
Matt?
I'll wait.
Did you want to finish?
No.
Well, I think I still have the question that someone was going to pose to me, that you have one proposal. How do you know that's the good one? How do I know it's a good one? As a leader, I'm not just going to say, I got one, that's good enough. It might be the best one in the state. It might be the absolute worst one. I feel as a leader that I would have a responsibility to investigate that. And at this point, I've got one option. I would propose that we look into more. That way we know. That way I'm following that part of my leadership role and responsibly spending the money and not just picking the first one that came up and going with it.
Just to pick up on that point and maybe to elaborate on what I said earlier is, I'm considering this proposal process-wise to be an unsolicited proposal, and there is another unsolicited proposal. Typically what the select board has done, whether it's a mowing contract or construction project, is Dean would put together an apples to oranges kind of spreadsheet for the select board to look at. And because of the way the proposal worked out and got whittled down to no affirmative decision at both steps of that two-part proposal, I have two proposals. I have not disseminated them because I'm concerned about the process. And I'd like to see those two proposals, if it's even available. If not, I'd like to see it go out to again, as an RFP strictly for net metering. And given, I think, the reservations that select board members had, I think there can be proposals that accommodate those apprehensions.
Matt, I think that was actually great because that was an articulate explanation of the process that you would recommend that the board go through to get to a decision about this, how the town is going to execute on the recommendation of the plan. So, but it doesn't sound like the board is agreed with what you outlined. So I guess the question would be, can the board agree with what you've outlined? And if not, does the board actually have a plan that you'd like to discuss in its place? I think that's the question that's being raised is, how do we get to a plan? I think you've proposed a path. Can the board agree to pursue that path?
I think,
That's a good
I
question.
think it would be a question of whether we want to put out an RFP,
Just for net metering?
just for net metering.
Is that something people would consider?
I
On the
would,
board?
I would consider that.
Sure.
Sure.
I just had more questions after the meeting than I had during the meeting. I would have liked to have, need to hear more in order to process for the best interest of town. Just wasn't enough time. I actually, quite frankly, when I saw the paperwork that you gave us at the last meeting, I was surprised that there was a motion, that you suggested a motion for us, because I didn't know we were being expected right then and there to do that, to agree or to disagree. But also, when you only get it, as I had said at the last meeting, I didn't see the contract. It was 22 pages. I saw it 2 hours before our meeting. I cannot, in my heart of hearts, vote yay or nay either way until I have enough time to process it. I agree that we don't want to take forever, but 4 months is not enough time. We've just spent 30 months, 50 months on the wastewater, village wastewater. I processed that for several years and months, whatever. And when I came to vote that day, I voted yes, and I knew it was in the best interest of the town. I want to make sure that when I sign my name, that feel like I've done the best that I could, and I couldn't do it in that short period of time. But it doesn't have to take forever for whoever doesn't want to.
I had a comment from a resident, and I was looking for the email. I committed to referencing it and having it in the minutes for tonight. Dean, do you have?
Yeah, from Bill.
Yeah?
Bill is here. He might be able to summarize his comments.
Or not.
Would you like
Or
to?
not.
What was the question?
Well, you had asked that we read into the record your comments, which were also posted on Front Porch Forum, and I was just looking for that email. Would you like to summarize them or to have?
Well, I think you're headed in the right direction here, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. But it's important to note that, net metering is our tax dollars also, and let's not lose track of that. Especially when you're doing net metering projects that are very far away. If they expanded Charlotte Solar, which is right next to my house, I'd be fine with that. That's solar, that's local solar. This Green Lantern project, I don't want to say they're using a loophole in the law, because that's not what it is. There's nothing illegal about what they're doing, but it really does break the spirit of what a net metering agreement actually is. Net metering is meant to do local production for local use. And I'd like to see the town, if we're going to promote solar, which I support, somehow mention that, let's keep our tax dollars local. I realize it is a zero-sum game. If we're subsidizing net metering, that's all our money here. And it does increase our electric rates.
John, then.
The handout that we provided to you in part addresses the concerns that the last speaker raised, and it sounded as though we're not even going to get into that, but if the last speaker has been allowed to raise those concerns, you ought to at least read the rebuttal to those concerns, which is on the second page of your handout. I should add that Sam provided a lot of that information, so he can amplify it.
Would you like to?
I'm happy to address the question as to what is the spirit of net metering. The spirit of net metering in Vermont is, and this is legislated by the Vermont legislature, the Assembly, and the Public Utility Commission, that there is what is called virtual net metering, which means that a solar array can be anywhere within the service territory of a utility, and a customer of that utility can use those net metering credits to reduce their bill. So anywhere in Green Mountain Power's territory, we can put a solar array, and any customer of Green Mountain Power can purchase those net metering credits and use them to reduce their bill. That's the spirit of net metering. That's what 35 other towns and schools are doing. That's what Sugarbush and Mount Snow and Smugs and Cabot Cheese and a number of other groups are doing. So there's, I'm just trying to, there may be different definitions about net metering, but the legislature clearly intended net metering to say an array can be anywhere within the service territory of a utility, and any customer of that utility can use those net metering credits to reduce their bill. If I had an array that was up in Vermont Electric Co-op territory, you could not use those credits to reduce your GMP bill. I can only use that array in partnership with a VEC customer.
Then Rebecca.
So we have, we get electricity from New Haven. There's an array there that we pay a small monthly fee. We didn't have any upfront costs, and we get those credits. So we're doing that. So what I'm really wanting to hear here, I hear that you want to get more options, to look at more options, but what I'm not hearing yet is there a real strong commitment from the select board? It kind of goes to the leadership to do something that brings renewable energy to this town. Is there a commitment among all of you to make sure we do this, and that we do it fairly quickly, because the laws change a lot, and we just heard that this net metering option might not be available next month or 2 weeks from now because we're not doing it. And we're not really sure if there are others that are big enough at this point to provide it to us. So I think maybe, is there a commitment? Do I see the nodding heads that all of you who represent us are committed to doing this? This is the future of our planet. It's not just our town.
I have an overriding fiduciary obligation to this town. That is my concern. And that fiduciary obligation, as Matt said, is one that makes we ensure we have followed our own processes and that we do that correctly. And I agree with Matt that that has not been done here. I have a personal fiduciary obligation to every member of this town. And to carry that out, I agree with Matt. And it also has to be a decent deal. And that's our fiduciary obligation.
So I hear that, and I really appreciate that you feel that very strongly, and I hope all of you do. But I'm not asking that. I'm asking for the commitment, one way or the other, to get this renewable energy to our town. Is that doing it the proper way, making sure it's legal, making sure it's the best deal, but are all of you wanting to see Charlotte commit to getting renewable energy? So I'm seeing some nods, but before you shook your head no. Is it true? Do you want to see?
I have a fiduciary obligation to this town. And that fiduciary obligation requires that I look at any proposal and ensure that it is a good deal for the town. I sent an email to John, and it was public. The deal we was in front of us last time was not, in my opinion, a decent deal. I understand that things have changed, but now we are in a dilemma because we, as Fritz has said and Matt has said, we cannot just take this new agreement and stamp it. I think we would be really not abiding by what the town needs to do.
I am not asking whether you're going to do this deal.
Good.
I'm asking whether you
I've
have.
said all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Peter?
Yeah, just to try to put a little sharper point on that last and some of the other comments. What is uncomfortable is the softness that's coming from this board about whether you want to do net metering at all. If you've got to the point where you want to set aside the RFP because you thought that that was confusing, and in order to get some more competition or some more expression of interest in responding to it, you've got to broaden it and reissue it. Before you do that, and please, bye, you've got to, in my opinion, come to the point of saying, we want to do net metering, and we want to do it under the following general conditions. We want to do it where the town has no upfront cost, we want no risk or liability. Now, please, Green Lantern, if you are so inclined, come back and make another proposal. You want to go to whoever you've been talking to, you want to broaden it up. At least you've got that commitment expressed by this board. If you don't, if Louise, you don't like this, because you don't like net metering, vote against it. Same as if there's not a majority here and a strong expression of this is what we want, then who's going to respond? To come back to the next meeting and say, oh, I don't know, I'm not really sure we want to do this, and maybe we can get a better deal. We don't want 20 years, we want 15 years. Be specific in the criteria you want, reissue it, and get on.
Well, that hasn't been discussed, although it should be. And I don't know if I would want to limit myself to saying the only option we have as a town is to buy net metering credits.
Well, then
they have identified in our town places the state has that are good for renewable energy and would provide premium credits if something were to be built there. So if I signed for a 20-year contract, says we're buying net metering credits for the town, and somebody wants to use that preferred site to put in a solar field, then it doesn't, I can't do that because I've committed to this one. So the question comes to my mind, if you're going to put out an RFP, do you want to specifically nail yourself down to only buying net metering credits? Or do you want to identify places in town that might be suitable? I mean, when I first moved here, they were going to put solar panels at Thompson's Point, I think it was, that someplace that was deemed unacceptable. But there are other places that are, according to this map that the state helped us put in the town plan. So do we want to discuss saying, well, the only thing we're going to do is do net metering credits and forget the other possibilities? Or do we want to explore using some of these other possibilities?
My sense from the last meeting was one of the major sticking points was the years of commitment based on the obsolescence of the technology, the opportunity loss that might come 10 years from now. And my sense was if we put out a RFP for net metering, one of those specific criteria would be that the town is looking for the option to increase and decrease at will. That flexibility, I think, would speak to some of the concerns of the no votes from 2 weeks ago. And having that flexibility in a net metering contract doesn't limit the amount of years the town can stay in the net metering agreement, but does allow the flexibility for the town to pivot if better opportunities arise. And I felt like having an RFP that has that specific language in it could, make the 2-3 at least into a 3-2, if not a 5-0. Rebecca?
I was going to address the issue of the local, whether we're basically you have two choices. You can go with another company that puts up all the upfront costs that might be local or might not be local, because there was a comment that it would be preferable to use our own lands, and that's true. But the other option is we do it ourselves. And that means the town, you heard what Sam said about what the costs of building, in that case, that was much larger an operation than we would require as a town. Nevertheless, the upfront costs and the complications of setting up such a solar system, if we're having trouble making this decision here, I think that would be, way beyond the capacity of this town. It would require raising taxes. It would be, and we're nickel and diming, every committee trying to get it down. So I don't see that. I mean, that's basically the choice. We can do it ourselves, or we can go with a reputable company that's done it for similar entities, towns, schools, large consumers.
But on our town lands, Fritz, are you saying that a developer could come and say we would?
There was some map that's part of the town plan that we just passed, that the person from the state helped us identify places that would be optimum for solar. That has got to the point of being that map, and it hasn't been looked at further, to the best of my knowledge. One of the factors of the list of money that Sam went through was the lease for the site. So that's not free. Thompson's Point was deemed not acceptable. Do we want to look at this map and say, gee whiz, we own a chunk of that one that they say is going to be a primo site? Maybe we want to lease it for $1, which would reduce the investment cost significantly.
Mike and then Sam.
Mike and Tochka, I respect the process, and if there's a problem with the way the RFP was issued, I'd say fix the process and go out for another RFP. The thing to be considered is, well, first of all, speaking to virtual net metering. Virtual net metering works because not everybody can put up a solar array, and we need the opportunity for people to be able to buy into renewable energy. Every solar array that goes up in Vermont is going to help Vermont's demand for renewable energy and help us to get off our proportion of fossil fuels that we buy from out of state. So solar going up anywhere in Vermont is good. Electrons flow to the nearest demand. So that array out in Heinsberg Road is feeding electricity to the homes around here. The credit's going someplace else, but we're getting the electricity because it's going to the nearest demand. Okay? So if this array down in wherever it is going to be producing electricity, those electrons are going to flow to the demand out there. But we're getting the benefit of the solar that is in the area here, regardless of who's getting the credit for it. So I think what the town needs to consider is, number one, do we want to help the state transition to renewable energy at the rate that we want it to, 90% by 2050? Will the town be able to save money? Because I don't know what the town pays for electricity now per year, but has that been going up? Has it been going down? Has it been staying the same? What does the trend portend for the future? And if we lock in a rate now, will we be saving money? And I think those are the considerations that need to be looked at, not where the array is. Because we're benefiting from all the solar that's around here, and distributed energy is good for Vermont, period. So what I'd ask you to do is take those things into consideration and decide for yourselves which direction do we want to take the town. Do we want to help contribute to renewable energy and get ourselves off fossil fuels, or do we want to stay behind and still be dependent on fossil fuels coming from Where are they coming from, downstate? Or down country?
That was my whole point, Mike. We really haven't had enough time to discuss it thoroughly enough to answer some of those things that you were asking. You said in the Charlotte News recently that why didn't we take the first offer or something? I meant to bring it with me, and I was like, right there, John, was the first and only discussion we had had on it. In this town, we discuss things thoroughly and understand it thoroughly, and just.
Sam?
This is just by way of education. To give you a sense of the market. I mean, I work throughout Vermont. We work in a very competitive environment. I know exactly what all of our competitors are offering in terms of net metering discounts. I know what they're paying for leasing land. We have to compete in bids all the time. To give you an idea, for a 1 acre plot of the town's land, that you could put a 150 kilowatt array, which is more than twice what you actually need for the town. You might earn $3,000 a year max as a lease payment, right? And then you would still have a net metering agreement on top of that, because whoever's putting up that array, they want to sell those net metering credits back. They would be the exact same discount rate, possibly lower, because the new solar arrays are coming out at lower rates. The Public Utility Commission has reduced those rates. But to give you a sense of a land lease rate, for 1 acre, it's about between $2,500 and $3,000 a year for a 20-year lease. For a 4 acre, 500 kilowatt array, which very few people are doing now because those net metering credit rates have come down a lot, you might earn $10,000 a year in a land lease agreement. So we work with the town of Royalton. I've got 3 land leases with the town of Royalton on town-owned land. And we have net metering agreements with the town of Royalton. So the town of Royalton's getting a tax payment from us, and they're getting a lease payment from us, and they're saving money on their electricity, right? So it's a nice package deal, right? And Brandon, same thing. We're leasing land from the town of Brandon, and we're selling net metering credits back. Town of Brandon's earning taxes and lease payments, and they're saving money on their electricity. So it's a nice thing to do if you can. I'm just giving you a sense of what the market is and but I would, to come to your point about, having a net metering agreement, I would encourage you to issue a new RFP that says we want flexibility in the number of years of the. All I can say is every single solar developer that I've talked to, and I've been in the business now for 6 years, 20 years is what's needed, because it takes our loan with Vita is 15 years to pay that off. We have to put up that 1.5 million up front. And it takes a really long time selling those net metering credits before we pay off that 1.5 million and generate any kind of a profit. We can't go to a bank with a 10-year net metering agreement with the town of Charlotte. Bank would just say, nope, not into it. So I know that's what the bank would say to us. Maybe there's another solar developer who will respond positively to those terms. I'm just saying what our own restrictions would be, and I've never seen a town net metering agreement or a school net metering agreement be for less than 20 years because of how long it takes to pay off the loans when we have to do all the upfront investment. So if you want a no upfront cost agreement where there's no money coming out of the town to save money on your electricity, you have to sign a longer term agreement. That's my experience. I could be wrong, and I might not know the market, and you test it.
Can 30 years is a 30-year agreement better? Is there a 30-year?
The longest I've seen is 25 with options to extend.
I see. I had heard somebody told me you got a better deal if it was 30 years, but I'm just you're educating us right now.
Yeah, typically, again, usually the land lease deal is 20 years because we have to have site control on the land and to know we can operate that array for 20 years. And the net metering agreement is the same. So typically those two things have to be aligned. The land lease and the duration of the net metering agreement, because that's what the financiers want to see. Because they don't want to lend money and then have us lose site control, or have, if you guys have the ability to exit after 10 years, then the bank's like, well, we don't know what's going to, so it's a remarketing risk. So the bank might still lend us some money, but now we're going to charge you a higher rate. So then I'd come back to you and say, well, I can't offer you a 10% discount on your net metering credit. It's going to be a 5% discount. Right? So I would take my higher capital cost and and say you're not going to get the savings that you want. But it's.
When you do a pro forma, do you have a percentage you figure for real estate? 5%, 3%, 10%?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
You have to pay the lease.
Yes.
Do you have a basic, when I'm starting to first figure out a deal, I figure 5% of the cost is going to be lease, 2%, 1%,
It's not, we wouldn't do it as a percentage. We would just say, okay, for this 500 kilowatt array down in Vernon, it's probably $10,000 a year. I mean,
yeah, but of your 1.5 to build it, you say, okay, part of it's in permitting, part of it's in panels, part of it's in dirt work, part of it's in.
We end up with a big, huge, gigantic spreadsheet where all these things are being put in. Landscaping, interconnection costs, land lease, road upgrades, all sorts of things that go into then, is it worth us trying to develop this project?
So why do you suppose the value of net metering credits is going down?
That's because the Public Utility Commission has chosen to lower those rates by about a penny a kilowatt each year.
Why do they want to do that?
I think they've found that the current rates, they got a very, very strong response from solar developers and from net metering customers, and solar grew quite quickly over the last 5 years or so, at the same time as that the costs for doing solar have come down. Right? What we pay for solar panels now, today, even with Trump's tariffs in effect, is lower than what we were paying for solar panels 5 years ago. So they're trying to find that balance of how much, what's that net metering credit rate that's still going to get solar developers willing to keep going. But we don't need it to be as generous as it was because the costs of solar have come down, and having a lower net metering credit rate responds to the utilities' concerns that the net metering credit rates are too high, because utilities have felt that they've lost too much revenue because of solar net metering. So they've complained, and the Public Utility Commission, the Department, they're trying to find that balance.
Is there input from people who haven't spoken? Julianne?
I was just wondering, with all this discussion going on, are there any potential conflicts of interest with just going with the discussions that we've been having? Are there any conflicts of interest with the Energy Committee with working with the Green Lantern or going forward? So if you issue another RFP and you've had a lot of discussions with Green Lantern, are you concerned about that at all?
Well, as I understand the conflict of interest policy is it has to have the appearance of or the actual monetary benefit to somebody. I am not aware of that. It also requires people to volunteer that knowledge up front. So no one to date has, and if there is one out there, I would hope people would volunteer that.
Thank you.
Bill, and then...
We put that that on here because it was raised. There are absolutely no connections between the Energy Committee and Bearman.
And that's everybody in the energy committee?
Yes, of course. It was sorry to be in the light, but it was just a straw, you know, it was a straw man that somebody brought up without any.
Well, we have to ask the question.
And it comes up from time to time here too. Bill and then Mike.
So really quickly, since you brought up conflicts of interest, I'm not saying anybody here has a conflict. But just remember, there are actually 4 different types of a conflict of interest. There's a direct monetary, involvement in a project. There's an indirect conflict of interest where your friends may be making money on a project, or associates, or people you've dealt with in the past, or may deal with in the future. So conflicts of interest is not as simple as are you making money on this one particular project. So people need to keep that in mind. I want to just backtrack what Mike said, about how any solar in Vermont is good. It's much more nuanced than that. I support solar, I want to see solar expand, but who's profiting, whether the money is staying in Vermont, the return on investment, are we getting a good deal? There's a lot more nuance to solar. And I'm sure Mike can talk about this. Net metering is big projects like this. Net metering is also solar panels on your roof, where you're selling money back to Green Mountain Power. They're very, very different. And so the legislature is trying to tweak this law. I don't think it's been brought up yet, but I know that there are many legislators who want to actually make changes to the net metering law. Thank you.
And Mike?
Yeah, I just want to make one more observation as I was reading this. It says that the project is on reclaimed gravel pit in Vernon, and reclaimed gravel pits are one of the preferred sites that we've identified for solar projects. So this is on a good site, and it's getting a higher rate of credit than a site in a green field would be getting.
And that gravel pit is a closed gravel, obviously a closed gravel
No, it's
pit.
actually still an operational
is it?
gravel pit.
Oh, great.
It's a large pit.
Yeah.
Parts of the pit that have exhausted and reclaimed. There are other parts of the pit that are still operating. So there are still trucks going back and forth in different parts of the pit. But the part of the pit where our array would go in has been fully reclaimed. Certified as such by the Department of Environmental Conservation. And that's the only way we can do it.
All right, great, thank you.
Yep.
John?
The town purchasing policy, as I remember, gives the select board the authority to not issue an RFP for projects that cost more than $1,000 if they decide to do so. That's in the purchasing policy. There's no cost to this project, aside from the money that you've already spent, which is going to be wasted as the outcome goes the way it appears. So you can, it looks to me as though you like the look of the proposal that you've received unsolicited. We haven't seen anything in writing. And so now you're trying to figure out how this proposal is no longer valid, so you can reject it, because you can't accept the other proposal without rejecting this one. This one came as a result of a legitimate request for proposal process. So this argument about, well, things changed and we only got one proposal, seems to me as a rationale after the fact to reject the proposal that you've got in order to be able to accept one that you like the look of better.
I hear that as your opinion. I think I laid out why I think differently.
Yep.
The board voted on the proposal from the RFP 2-3 against last meeting. To me, that was the end of that proposal process.
that was the case, you should never have agreed to put a new proposal on this agenda, and you shouldn't have allowed people working on it to basically waste 2 weeks' worth of their time.
In the interim, 2 unsolicited proposals came to us, and I had not seen the other one until this afternoon. So what I want the opportunity for the whole town to have, and for the select board to have, is the opportunity to weigh those 2 options fairly. What is the fair way to do that? Would be to reissue an RFP. If there's a more fair way to do that, I'd be open to your suggestions. But I have my personal opinion about being the only person who has seen 2 proposals, which one I would prefer. So I'm trying to be judicious in what the best way forward is for the town to be fair in evaluating 2 competing proposals. Sam said this is a very competitive market, and I wouldn't be surprised if an RFP went out that we'd get more than these 2 proposals, because it doesn't include the complicated small-scale construction project that the first RFP had as a dependent to the proposal. They were not independent, even though they were 2 separate pieces to one RFP. So I see it a little differently, and my preference would be to put out a very specific RFP with a very fast turnaround, so that the town can get on, the most advantageous net metering agreement for the town and for renewables. That's what I'm advocating for here. Peter, then Rebecca.
Yeah, Peter Richardson. If you go that route, Matt, I just would entreat the board to make an explicit endorsement of the net metering endeavor. Because if you go sideways into this thing, Fritz, you've already said you're not crazy about net metering, you wanted to go in a different direction. Louise, you have been sliding off of the whole net metering idea. There's something uncomfortable about it. And, others of you are just not sure. Don't go into an RFP if there is division on the board as to whether you want to do it, because that's embarrassing for the town.
I definitely want to understand it.
You don't understand what I just said?
No. I said I definitely am in favor of going forward,
And
following.
I'm not sure where I said I don't like net metering either. So make sure you say the right thing next time.
I'm sorry?
I said, I don't see where I said that I don't like net metering.
Well, I heard you saying
I'm
you
a
want
participant in it. I have a
other
24
options.
kW system on my barn. I started buying solar stuff in a different state. And now someone says, well, that's what you said. I don't think so.
Rebecca?
I just want to state for the record that it's very distressing for the Energy Committee to come to this meeting and find out that the proposal we've been working on for a few months is suddenly a surprise. So I just want to say that. I know you've explained why, but I just need to say that again. The other thing is, if moving forward, could we have something concrete? Can we have a timeline? If you are committing to putting out this RFP, can we pin this down a little bit?
Yeah, we have a meeting next week. What I'd like to do is have that RFP ready for approval to be released next Monday.
Who will you be working with on that?
Hopefully someone from the Energy Committee and Dean. Marty?
This is not my area of expertise, but I'm trying to be a good listener and get it. But I'm feeling like the town has been negotiating with this potential, whatever the name of this group is. Green Lantern. And there's been a process going on, after an RFP is issued. So, the Energy Committee is working on behalf of the Select Board in an advisory fashion and working directly with this person and group that has come forward to make a proposal. And to me, it seems very unkosher to say, even though you got some really interesting new requests in there to end what the Energy Committee has been working on in good faith with this contractor. To end that and start all over again seems completely unkosher to me, and I might be missing something, but.
You were on the board, so when the board votes something down, that's the decision.
Right.
So it was voted down last meeting,
Because
2
it
to
got
3.
voted down, yeah,
And that was the decision of the board.
right.
I'm looking at finding enough votes to get a net metering agreement
Okay.
that has a majority of the board.
Yep.
And all the months worth of hard work, negotiation, time and investment put in to that original RFP failed 2 weeks ago. And that's something that, I'm not really willing to accept.
Thank you.
So we should never put it on the agenda for this meeting.
Yeah, that was a little, or maybe in that way.
I don't know.
You agreed
To,
put it on the agenda.
well, when the request came in, this is the discussion that I was expecting to have. If the board wanted to vote on an unsolicited offer that was basically a renegotiated offer, that's the type of thing that the purchasing policy is set up to try and stop, is a municipality doing back and forths with one entity after there's been a public RFP process. That's not really a kosher way of manipulating RFPs. And I've done a lot of state bid work in the construction field, and it just gets messy if you start negotiating with a different option than what the proposal was submitted as. It gets really messy, and it's, I don't think, a good precedent to set across doing business with other companies, not just with net metering.
I accept that you're really committed to acting in the best interest of the town and trying to find the best possible agreement that you can for net metering. I just wish the process had been clearer earlier, so that all of us, not just the Energy Committee, but the Select Board, Green Lantern, other people that have volunteered their time on this, are not in the position we find ourselves in today. And we say, well, it's been educational, and it sure has. You can interpret that word however you like. I just hope that there's some return on the investment in the education, of everyone in this room.
I really appreciate, John, what all of you've done. I truly am learning, and I really appreciate what everyone did.
So if a town agrees to put out an RFP, the select board representing the town, that means the select board wants to do this. They're just looking for the best option, right? That's what I keep asking.
Yes.
So this is what the town wants to do, just finding the best option.
No, from my perspective, it's finding an option that allows me to carry out my fiduciary obligation to the town. And we may get no proposals that do that. And I'm leaving that option open. I have a very strong obligation to the people of this town.
As far as I can tell, this is saving us money, so I'm not sure where that falls into the fiduciary obligations.
Well, I will tell you, I'll make this short.
Spend money.
In my view, from my many, many years of experience in the energy business, there is regulatory risk, there's technology risk in this. And I've said everything I had to say at the last meeting, and you can listen to it on TV if you have nothing else to do.
What was your name just for the minutes?
Jacob Edgar.
Thank you. Marty?
Just, the agenda item says consideration of revised net metering agreement to provide da-da-da-da-da. So your agenda item is to consider the revised agreement. So do you have conclusions? You're considering this revised agreement. Can you provide for the record your opinions on the revised agreement?
It's not in front of us.
It is, you've had it since January the 29th.
This is how it's written on your agenda.
I think-
I'm trying to get
What-
understand your intent.
What my consideration of it is that it needs to go out to an RFP for a net metering agreement. That's what I'm considering tonight. That
But
seems,
Could you comment, I mean, it's just a question, could you comment on the revised agreement? Like, there's now a revised agreement before you, and what are your opinions about the revised agreement? That a lot of work was put into seeking an improved agreement, and what are your opinions about the revised agreement? Not counting the fact that you've got some new guys coming in for interest as well.
well, maybe people want to speak to the changes? There were a limited number of changes that were made?
I think Sam already spoke to the changes that were made. It seems a moot point, so I don't think there's anything could be added to it.
Yeah, so can you share with us your opinion about the revisions?
I think that belongs in the RFP proposal. I think it would be inappropriate for us to comment on this one. Matt, I mean, you make the call.
I mean, if we're considering an RFP, it would be a new point to make a decision on this particular proposal.
Can you speak up, please?
I just said it becomes a new point if we're going to put out an RFP for new proposals to continue to talk about this one.
So how do you want the record to show tonight? Like in the minutes here, this agenda item? You're going to just stop your consideration because of what you just said?
We would say that consideration of the net metering agreement is not appropriate because it's a single entity and it requires it's a commitment of 20 years contract to pay money.
Yeah, so I mean, it does sound like you're changing your mind, which is fine, but it should say that on the record. You know what I mean? Like, have a clear representation of what's happening here on the record.
I guess it's, the consideration is to hold consideration until it's submitted through the RFP process.
What do you know?
It's not going to be, it's not going to be.
Sorry, you're saying that the conclusion of the board tonight is that you're putting it on hold. Is that what you mean? Is that what you just said, Matt?
No, I said it would be considered if it's submitted through an RFP process, right? Which we'll be voting on next Monday.
Why not just vote on the net metering agreement that was submitted to you and, vote yea or nay, but then that really is closed.
Is there a motion? Is there any
motion, no vote?
There's no motion. Is there any other discussion? My goal was to spend as much time as needed to consider this option. We spent almost an hour and allotted 25 minutes. I really appreciate all of the work that's gone in. I hope that we get more than one offer with the RFP. Hopefully it'll be out by next Monday.
Just for Martin's, for the record, will you folks vote on whether you're going to issue an RFP? You can define the details of it, or ask the Energy Committee, please re-engage and help us do this, and we'll vote formally on it. But some kind of expression of support for an RFP to solicit proposals to do net metering. Because if you haven't got that, We haven't got nothing.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, I'll make a motion that,
I was just gonna say, I'll make his motion, but you go.
that the, by next Monday, the board draft, with the help of the Energy Committee, an RFP for net metering agreement, a standalone net metering agreement for the town of Charlotte.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thanks a lot, appreciate your time.
Thanks, Sam.
That motion, which is to put an RFP out.
Yep, no, everybody.
Okay, let's play catch up. Adjourn?
Oh, God.
Vanessa, I thought we took off those, I was surprised to see these on here. I was surprised to see them.
Museum, no, museum is, but the South Green Bush is all Thompson's Parts and now.
But
Two big ones, refugee park, we do that. And North Green Bush is over there by the Atlantic, right?
there's only two.
Yeah.
No, North Green Bush.
Where's that?
That would be the store.
I'm not sure, so I'll have to ask. But these are the two that we have the problems with. Because one of them.
Right, exactly.
These here, we did over 70 of them. The year before, 71 of them.
I just was, for some reason, surprised to see them. I get it now.
Okay. Huh?
Get rid of the mob.
I don't think I've ever made up an hour.
I had my release section. Did you see anything like that?
You should have been at the meeting for the.
Oh, God.
Fields. When I was doing that.
Oh, boy.
Standing room only.
Yeah.
They were in the offices.
What?
They're in the major fields.
Oh.
Okay.
They're in the office.
We all back? Dean?
There's Dean.
Dean's back. All right, the next agenda item, request for bids, mowing and maintenance of cemeteries.
Terry and Frank, I think, met with Dale, Vanessa, and Adam, and went through the town mowing contract and the cemetery mowing contract and the request for, and the brush-hogging mowing contract. So Frank and I talked, and I incorporated, I believe, what I interpreted to be the changes that they discussed. There might be some additional changes. I think Frank was also possibly looking for maps for the mowing contract. But
Well, I
that's,
was just looking for the maps so that we could have, I mean, if a new contractor comes in to bid on this, it'd be nice if they had a map of where they're going and possibly have a number of the trees.
Yeah.
Maybe at least the number of trees on that particular lot or that particular parcel, so that they know how many trees that they have to mulch or trim around. So that was part of what I was
It'll help
hoping
10 years
would
from
be
now.
in here.
So the maps are important.
so I think, I guess as far as the map goes, I'm not sure we can get to the level of specificity to say, you know, the exact trees are gonna be here, here, and here. At this point, maybe some point we
Right,
could
I
GPS them,
wasn't
but-
talking about putting where they actually are located on the property as
Okay.
much as just having a map to say that there are so many trees at the town hall, there's so many trees at the library, there's so many trees at the senior center. there's so many trees at the Burns property or on the side of the road that need to be trimmed around and brush hogged around. That was what I was getting at.
So,
That'll come.
I mean, just
That'll
to,
come with the map. You just would keep adding
yeah.
to it.
So the way, I mean, I just initially added that into the text of the request for bids to say, you know, lists the different properties and the number of trees.
Hey, Dean, on page 5, on my copy, is that a cross out?
Is it a green and red?
No, it looks like it's red, but it says the select board may award one contract for all the work, or it may award separate contracts.
Yeah.
Is that a cross out?
That is crossed out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Based on the discussion I had with Frank, but that was, you know, open for discussion.
That was open for discussion. I just thought, in my mind, it seems it would be a better decision to try to have a single bid for all the mowing.
Rather than pick the lowest.
Rather than pick the lowest one out of each parcel.
Mulch here.
Well,
I think when you're cherry picking like that, I mean, that's somebody's made, that's a better bid to have, this is what it is, not it may be this, or
Well-
maybe pick your low price here and somebody else's low price, nobody wants to
Well,
be
that's
cherry
what I
picked.
mean. I mean, it just seems like we get in trouble when we pick and choose if you have 2 or 3 people bidding on it, and you pick one of the 3 for each thing, and you end up having 3 different contractors doing all the work. And sometimes the contractors are gonna say, well, I bid that, I said that's how much it would cost, but if that's the only thing I got,
I agree.
it would have been higher.
I agree, but shouldn't we then also take out the next sentence, Dean, where it says bids should indicate the amounts for each item?
I guess that's a question. You know, I think in the past, the select board has wanted to see, just maybe it's just curiosity, what it costs to do the beach, what it costs to do the town hall, what it costs to do trails. So having that is informative in terms of just understanding what makes up the total.
Does that work for you when you're going through your
Yeah,
bid?
because don't you guys all have a certain amount you have to spend?
It goes
in
into
each
different
category?
budgets sometimes also.
Okay, that makes sense.
Maybe say instead of each item, it'd be each location, because you've got, now we're gonna total trees by location. I mean, like it says here, you know, there's a town green, 19 trees, so.
The trees you were asking about, Barry, they're on this Brunswick's property. It's now been sold on Greenbush Road headed north.
There was only a couple.
There are 2 trees there, and the reason I put them on a contract to be mulched is that the landowner mows there, and I don't want them damaging the trees. Every tree along the roadside isn't mulched. There's a reason that we're asking to have them mulched. For example, there's 5 trees on Ferry Road across from Darling's, you know, the boat work and stuff. And when we looked at those trees, we found that they've been damaged by weed whackers. So we have those on the list of trees that need to be mulched so that they're not damaged.
Are those new, Sue?
It's on the Ferry Road. See, this one.
No, I know the trees have been there, but the mulching, is the mulching new?
This would be the 3rd year, I think, or the 4th year.
In a row?
Yeah.
Jenny?
One thing about keeping in the request for proposals, the individual items, the individual costs, is it does help to see whether it's within the individual budgets, like for the Schlock Park and Wildlife Refuge, you know, what is it going to be for the park and how much is going to be spent, or, you know, other areas in the town. So that's helpful as far as understanding the costs. I think the select board does keep some flexibility anyway in the way the request is worded, that you might choose a different, it doesn't necessarily say it'll choose one, there'll be one contractor. The select board will make the decision to choose one or any or all.
Dean and board, last year we discussed mulching around, I forget how, the number of trees along Thompson's Point Road just before you get to Thompson's Point. It's on the south side of the road. And it didn't get done. And by the time the whole contract was figured out, the grass was really high around those trees. And Adam had the contract, and he did a beautiful job of weed-whacking around those trees. So it seemed to make sense to me, whoever does the brush hogging on the Thompson's Point lands could do a nice job of those trees, just weed-whacking carefully around them with a fine.
We talked about that, doing just that.
Whatever
That
you
is
call
what's
that.
gonna happen, yes.
But that would be on the brush hogging.
That's on the brush hogging, right.
Right, we had some things that were moved to the brush hogging contract to accommodate, hopefully, for the trees that are being brush hogged and then trimmed around. I'm hoping that all these, what I'm gonna call satellite locations are within this contract.
Jenny?
I think I might have said that wrong before, but what is the wording for the select board's decision? Isn't it, scrolling down, there is some wording for the select board being able to make a decision based on whatever's being presented. So that it sort of covered a wide range of,
Reserves the right to accept or reject.
that's it.
Any or all parts?
That needs to change, that should change.
That should change.
That's verbiage taken directly from the purchasing policy, but
Oh, it is, that's.
Right, we have the right to reject any and all bids.
You can, you're right, to do that, but
The parts.
it's the parts that.
Right.
I guess it's the parts, it's the same thing with the mowing, is to have it so that the bid is the bid. And you can't say, so-and-so's gonna do proof lane and so-and-so.
No, I think that's where we are, at least that's where I am, it should be one contract.
Right, but it says any and all
Yeah, that's
bids, and if we state in the, if we can, and that can be bid anyway. I mean, even if we're saying it's gonna be awarded to a single person or a single company, we can still accept or reject any of the bids. But it would be my hope would be that would be in as the whole. They would either reject them completely or accept it completely, not piecemeal it out like it has been in the past.
I agree with that.
I have a question on the signing of the contract. How many days after someone's been awarded do they sign the contract?
I don't think that changed, and I don't think there's anything specific in there. I know there was,
Because once a contract's signed, then they have to begin the work within so many days.
right, and that extended to 30 days.
So that really is a necessity. That has to be
So,
You've changed it.
addressed, I should say.
yeah, so
There's
right
30 days.
there, like, number one, to be completed within, instead of 14 days, 30 days, start the cleanup.
Awarded and signed.
Yeah. That's true. Actually, I need to make that change within the rest of the categories as well.
I think you should put in there too, Dean, with weather permitting.
Yes.
As far as spring cleanup?
Yeah,
Yes.
because you never know, we could get a snowstorm at the end of April.
Thanks for reminding us.
It's happened.
It's happened, I know.
You got one last year, right?
Yeah, I guess just going back to that, any and all.
Right.
In the purchasing policy, section E3, the select board reserves the right in its sole discretion to reject any and all bids, wholly or in part, to waive any informalities or immaterial irregularities therein, to accept any bid even though it may not be the lowest bid, to call for rebids, and to make an award which in its sole and absolute judgment will best serve the town's interest. So that language is not, is not from the purchasing policy. I don't have a problem getting rid of it either.
No, and this is says bids will be to mow for the entire growing season. Do we have that defined?
Say that again.
Do we have the entire growing season defined?
In general, the contract period is April 1st through December 31st.
So would we want to put that at the beginning where it talks about the 30 days of the contract being awarded, or before April 1st when it has to be executed?
Not quite catching it. So
I just want to put a deadline on it when they have to sign it. I mean, I'm assuming that they should be able to, they should have a signed contract before the 1st of April when it's due to start.
The spring cleanup.
The spring cleanup is,
But this is all contingent on your decision date.
right.
So are you going to put, is there a decision date that you will have? That will be March
Ideally.
25th. That will be the decision date.
Yeah,
Bids are due March 23rd, and usually at the next select board meeting, we've had a chance
actually,
to
at
analyze
that
it.
meeting, well, at that meeting, you open them, and then
And in the past,
right,
you've then done an apples to orange
for the next
comparison.
meeting, right, which is in April. The next meeting will be in April, so it'll be
Right.
after April 1st.
right, but if,
Yeah.
but if
We move it up a
should
week.
the sealed bids be in the beginning of March?
We could.
Then you do have to, you're supposed to advertise them for the purchasing policy, if you have that on your phone. I don't remember whether it's 15 days or 30 days.
We can open the bids at a special meeting, and get one person to be there, open them at 4 o'clock on a Tuesday. We've done that before.
Yeah, well, no, I understand that. I just want to make sure that the date it's awarded is in enough time for that.
April 1st.
It's before the April
We didn't get
1st.
it awarded last year, so what, in the third week of April?
If you don't have the opening at a meeting, then you can speed it up, and once they're open, Dean can present the thing, and you can make a decision and award it at one meeting.
At least 2 weeks prior to the submission deadline.
To be advertised.
Yeah.
So, if you.
So if we approve this tonight,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not here for a week, starting tomorrow at 5:30. I'm at.
You're out.
So it'll be sorry?
Or tonight at 9:30 is when you.
Yeah, well, it has to go in a newspaper and whatnot, so, I mean, I guess it depends upon if you approve every single thing the way it's written, I'll send it out. So, then there's 2 weeks from the notice to make the decision, or to open the bids.
Yeah, request for proposals shall be advertised in the newspaper of record and in any other appropriate media at least 2 weeks prior to the submission deadline.
So that would be the March 23rd meeting.
Well,
Decision deadline.
the submission deadline could be the week before March 23rd, and it could just be an uneventful opening, public opening, which would be March 16th. Well, it would just be literally opening them, and then we would have, you'd have a week to be able to put a comparison together for the March 23rd meeting.
Right.
Is that possible?
Sure.
Logistically?
Oh, yeah.
So we're just changing the,
23rd to the 16th.
yep, on the sealed bids.
What date did you say?
March 16th?
And what did we do about, I apologize, I had to wait for a minute. South Greenbush Road and the Thompson's Point, we already said no. What?
What's your on it?
I'm not sure.
The South Greenbush Road on Burns property and the old lantern. I gotta get the old
We're
lantern.
weed whacking
Or-
around them.
You're gonna weed whack?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
You're talking about the brush hogging bid?
Well, the trees.
Weed whacking or
Last year,
mulch.
we were gonna mulch them, but then it got in a big
So,
confusion.
so those are gonna be part of the brush hogging bid?
Part of the brush hogging bid.
With
Which
the-
one
right.
it is?
The trees on the left side of the Burns property headed down,
Yeah, I know where they are.
and then the ones on East Thompson's Point Road.
What about the ones on the right side? No,
What about
on Thompson's Point Road.
We do those,
We do those in voting much though.
yeah. On the Burns property?
The old
Yeah, we do
lantern?
those. No. No, we mulch those trees. The ones that are on the Burns property on the right, we mulch those. And there's two past the driveway that we mulch.
No.
We already did those.
Yeah, all done.
Right.
So,
I have a question
can
about,
I have that list again, please? Burns property,
East Thompson's Point.
East Thompson's Point.
Yeah.
No, it's not East Thompson's.
Oh, it's Thompson, I'm sorry.
Thompson's Point.
Thompson's Point, they've been taken out.
And the old lantern, is that one of them?
No, old lantern, Mowing.
I think it's on the tree category, the 31 on the South Greenbush Road and Thompson's Point Road, those 22.
On Greenbush, it's on the east side of the road.
Those,
Just the Burns property and Thompson's Point Road.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But we're leaving in the old lantern, you
The old
say?
lantern.
The old lantern's
Correct.
already done.
And Eric?
I'm here for another meeting, but I've got to take it to North Greenbush Road. If the town was going to mulch my trees.
Would you do it?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So we lost two trees.
Nice.
But yeah, I can save a couple left for it.
That'd be great.
Awesome.
Anyone opposed?
so there's
Thank
no
you.
longer going to be a tree category. That'll be included in,
It's included in the mowing and land
Okay.
maintenance proposal.
that'll include into the land maintenance.
Yep, which is up next, right? Right now, we're looking at the, oh yeah, no, that's this, the land, mowing and land.
So what you're
maintenance.
saying is there are no trees left over that are separate from,
There are some trees that are within the brush hogging contract that don't get mulched, they get,
Co-housing.
they weed whack around them.
You know, Warren Spinner in Burlington inventoried every single tree and assigned a monetary value to them.
They're worth a lot, aren't they?
They're worth a lot,
Yes.
yeah.
And the
And-
mine that I cut down was an ash tree, and they said it was worth $3,200.
Well, and they appreciate
It was an ash
because they grow every year, so that inventory increases. It's pretty amazing.
Now, on the brush hogging bid, and I talked to Adam, I've brush hogged the coast housing trail. The one that goes from the underpass on Route 7 to the
South.
co-housing houses.
Yep.
I've done that for 2 years and I've never charged the town because what happens is the swamp grass gets so high it falls on the trail. Because we mow 6 feet wide when we go down with the mowers, and over the summer it builds up in there, so I just go down, so I told Adam to put it in his bid this year. It takes 1 hour.
To do the shoulders of the trail,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Still within
And
the
that-
town's
that
right
was-
away.
And that
or
was added into the
easement.
brush hogging.
And then there's one other parcel that I told Adam, that's on the Burns property, and it's down over behind the mound system. That should be brush hogged before it gets all trees,
Yeah,
which are the 2 trees there now.
we
so is
talked
that a
about
one-time
that.
thing, or is that every,
I would do it one time.
Once a year.
I did it the end of July, 1st of August.
It just keeps woody, anything becoming woody.
Anything, any kind of woody vegetation.
It's actually,
that you want.
it's pretty wet there, so.
We talked about that.
The mower gets stuck there.
Yeah.
But you could do that you could do that like December or when,
You know, when the ground freezes?
Technically, it's wetland.
Yeah.
or early in the year.
Which class?
Rubber tire tractor can go over it.
I'm pretty sure there are different restrictions. Right?
Correct.
Okay, so that's something to look into? The once-a-year mowing on that mound?
No, just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
It needs to be done.
So I guess we'll just,
That's an additional.
we'll double check to make sure that
Now
that's
on this
consistent.
brush hogging, it says it had 2 times during the season and then it was crossed off.
I would say to the select board that I think you want all your properties done twice a year,
Or checked at least.
so that your poison parsnip is
Um,
checked.
So that was crossed off because I made the change to do every property 2 times a year.
And that's what I'm
So
saying.
on the front it says that.
The top.
On the top.
So all the
Twice per growing
growing
season.
season.
The first time at early June or early July.
So all your trees also,
So you're okay with the timing, Adam?
Trees would be done twice.
Yeah, he's gonna use his own discretion.
Adam, you're okay with the timing that was put in this RFP
Yeah, I
for
think
for the twice? It says first time June, early July, and the second time August, September, early September.
Yes. Whether-
That would be your recommendation? Okay.
Are there any motions?
I thank you guys for your
Yes.
input at the meeting we had. It was really informative.
So there'll be 3 contracts, for lawn mowing, cemetery, and brush hogging,
Right.
correct?
And I would just like to make one more, because of what happened last year, that Chris's lawn care is not involved in the bid this year. Because we already know, when he got awarded the cemetery, she stayed right up and said, he's not getting it. I want Adam. And then the brush hogging came, and Chris got the brush hogging plus all the mowing of the trails, and he didn't do them, plus all the mulching of the trees. And then he called me one Monday night and says, I got the mowing of the trails and I have the brush hogging, and I told him, I says, I can't bid on the brush hogging because I didn't bid on it. That's just my opinion.
Yep.
That he shouldn't be awarded in the bidding process of what happened last year.
That's why you have insurance.
In section, to address that concern, in section E of the purchasing policy of, section 4, the bid process, subsection E, 1B says the bidders, the criteria for bid selection, the bidder's experience and reputation, including past performance for the town, is to be considered as one of the criteria. There's 8 criteria there. So I don't think it's available to the board to ban people from bidding on a municipal project, but everything is considered in that bid selection.
Also, I did last year the outers on the fields. Is that something that would be an additional consideration?
I thought that was to make them more available for mowing by the ag lease.
Where was that?
So last year, we did additional brush hogging, which was the Thompson's Point. We also did, we did everything that was roadside where Mr. Lewis ends. Usually there's a gap of growth, and then the farmer pays. And then we push back into
The
tree lines around. Is that something that you want as a brush hogging bid? Is that yearly, or is that something that should be additional to?
Is that in there, Dean, or is that?
It's not, I assumed it was a one-time thing and that it would become part of the ag field.
I mean, what's the,
We can't let it grow
does
up
anybody
again.
want to put
What's
it
your
back
advice?
in as a once a year thing?
Once a year, right.
The outer field.
Yes, I agree with that.
I agree.
Once a year for a couple of years, and it should be hayable after that if
Yes,
somebody hays it.
That's true, yeah.
It won't be right off the bat.
So is that something we can add to this
Sure.
easily and, or semi-easily?
Yeah, so along the road and the fields that were done last year.
Yes.
I just want to ask about the field, the ball field down at the beach. Should it remain a ball field or should it become a planted grass field?
I think every mother should have to endure what I had to endure that in April.
Early April.
freezing your tush off.
I mean, should that be a project for the rec commission to decide what they're gonna do with that piece of property?
No, I think down there at the ball field, I mean, they used it a few times last year because they couldn't play down there at the Berry ball field. But, I mean, there's more games down at the Berry ball field than there is down at the lake field.
Right.
I think that we ought to talk to the rec commission and moving the benches down to the Berry ball field.
Possibly,
No,
but I mean, I think
it-
that's something the rec commission should come up with.
Yeah.
It's there, that's the part of
Because, I mean, the sign where they kept score, that's gone now because somebody cut it down with a chainsaw. They got tired of looking at it. So,
It was in the view of the lake.
was that what it was?
So yeah, I think that one will have the rec commission weigh in on their master
So, in
plan.
the meantime, do the Harley raking on the.
On the infield?
field.
Yeah.
That's what's happened every year?
Yeah,
Well,
I'd
in
leave it,
case
I'd
they
leave
need
it
to
at
use
that
it, it
for
needs
now,
to be
and then
ready.
we'll.
Yeah, we did it.
Let the rec commission take it
We
over.
did it once last year and one of the ball players did it again. I was getting a Harley rake, but he already did it, so.
Yeah.
Because that was that period, it rained so much and they couldn't play down there at the Berry ball field because it was so soaked.
I'd say put it back in, Dean.
I would think it'd be important for the rec commission to know that it's used sometimes when it's wet down at the Berry ball field. Something to consider how often.
You gotta go somewhere.
Sue?
Louise, I was part of the crowd with Louise watching. And
Were you as cold as I was?
I believe a lot of money went into engineering that ball field to make it really perfect. So I think it shouldn't be taken lightly to just rip it out of there.
Right, and that's why I'm saying let it go to the rec commission, because they're the ones that are supposed to be responsible for the beach area, so
I thought
I leave it to them to
If you
decide.
built it, they will come. I heard that.
Dean, what was number 6?
So that's gonna be removed because the trees are now gonna be weed whacked and Eric's mulching the trees on Greenbush Road.
Okay.
All right.
Do we have a motion for all three of these?
Sure, to release all three bids
Yeah.
as amended.
Vanessa, you have something else?
Huh?
Are you all set with that?
I guess it's saying to do Thompson's Point now?
That'll be deleted.
That's gonna be gone.
That's gonna be gone.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So it's gonna be weed whacked
It's gonna be weed whacked.
Okay,
as part of the brush-hogging.
right. Oh, this is on brush hog.
No, that's the old one.
That's,
So that'll change.
I second. That's getting late. Is there a motion?
Aye. Oh,
No, really, we need a motion to.
motion to approve, you wanna do all three at once?
Why not?
Motion to approve the mowing and maintenance of the cemeteries the mowing and land maintenance, and the brush hogging request as amended.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? You got me. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you for your help on
Yeah, thank you.
making a better process this year.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave.
Next agenda item?
Erika's here for that, and Junior.
License agreements for utilities crossing under town highways. Jonathan and Erika Bearman at 1576 Lake Road.
Do we know what's prompting this? Just curious.
What the what?
What is prompting this?
Right now, we've actually demoed everything on the property, and the current line on the pole on the east side of Lake Road goes 625 feet to the next pole, and 625 feet is twice the distance that GMP really allows between poles. So the idea would be, since we would have to put a pole somewhere in between the property of Tony Karen and John Bearman, would be to just make it easy and eliminate the overhead altogether and get it onto John's property without being in the setbacks of Karen's property.
So you'd be erasing overhead lines and it'd be underground?
Yeah. So we
This
would be
is
getting rid of an overhead.
because they're deteriorated, or
What's that?
the lines are deteriorated, they're building a new house, they're...
Well, they are building a new house and a new garage and new guest house, but this current run is 625 feet, and GMP is
Right.
taking a look at the service and saying, we need to put a pole right here.
Okay, well, this is a result of a change in service then. Okay. So you're just gonna go underground instead of at a pole?
Junior, do you have concerns about the town highway and the right of way?
No, I talked to Brett, yeah, I talked to Brett from Birdseye and just told him, not to be digging in the shoulder, and he was fine with that. And then they come in for the permit with you guys, so I'm okay with it.
Okay. Any other? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the license agreement for utility crossing under Lake Road, 1576 Lake Road for Jonathan and Erika Bearman.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Do you want to sign and,
Authorize the chair to sign?
Sure. Was that a second for the chair to sign?
Friendly,
Again.
a friendly amendment?
I just can't get that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there any waiting limit or time to do the work?
just notification to the road commissioner. And they were gonna email, or have a mail hard copy of the signatures. Good. Yeah, I mean, they said we could mail it.
Thank you. Thanks. We're making up time. Sorry about the delay. Appoint Fritz Tegatz as volunteer clerk of the works.
No, I
For the library
I
edition?
really question his sanity, so I'm not sure he's going to be capable of doing that.
Well, the continuity is paramount. Really appreciate you're willing to
Oh, God, yes.
stick it through and follow the whole process.
No, they'd have been moving in with a new part if we hadn't had it 2-week snafu on the carpet order. They said it'd be here in 4 weeks, and they said, oh, well, no, 6 weeks. So they were supposed to move this week into the new part. So it'll be almost done at the end of the month anyway.
Yeah, almost smooth. Is there a motion?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. Any more discussion?
There's supposed to be a person, town officer, to which I'm going to, for oversight, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oversight of the project will be provided by the following town.
Who wants to be Fritz's supervisor?
Just imagine supervising Fritz. That's
Work with that
weird.
cranky old bastard.
Job
Kidding?
everybody wants.
I'll volunteer to supervise.
Alrighty.
Carrie it is.
I have to get down for a visit. It looks lovely right here. All the lights, the porch looks like, should have a porch party.
The sheetrock's done, it's painted on the inside. I think they're almost done with all the wood trim.
I guess there's nowhere for us to sign this, is there?
Mr. Fritz, let's see.
It's a volunteer service statement and agreement.
So I guess you're
Mary's
gonna
gonna
have to
sign?
give me a,
There's probably
tour.
should be a place for Fritz to sign.
Volunteer,
Yeah,
top left
volunteer.
of the bottom
Okay.
signature area.
So I'll do up a
Yeah.
final version and, yeah.
Yeah, you can fix the
okay,
date.
and then you can give me a tour, and then I'll know what I
You'll
need
say
to
2020.
supervise.
Anytime you want.
Should say 2020.
Maybe Friday.
Yeah, too many zeros.
Friday, maybe. Friday would probably work.
That's the last time someone did that was 2009.
Must be.
Certificate of highway mileage?
So this is something that's required every year by the state, just to certify the number of class 2, class 3, class 4 highways that we have. If they were to change, we would have had to do a discontinuation or a laying out of a road, which we haven't done. So it's basically approving it as is, nothing's changed. And they do need, this does need to be submitted by February 20th. So we could sign it.
That's yours?
Motion to approve the certificate of highway mileage
Oh,
for 2020.
second?
Second? Or you second?
Do I get to approve the chair to sign?
It's actually, there's spaces for as many people as can. I think there's 3
Oh.
spaces, but others can sign below it.
Oh, yeah.
Just did it again. Next time.
Yeah. Junior, oh, nothing's changed.
I was looking already, really, every one of them has to be re-entered individually. You can't just
Copy and paste.
copy and paste. So, yeah, that's all of it.
Any more discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This is the official one. Um,
I guess town meeting presentations was just to touch on the topic in case anyone had any quick thoughts, but this is going to be on next Monday's agenda, if that's the date that you picked for
Let's
that.
save it for next Monday. The 8 o'clock meeting, the 8 o'clock item. We're slipping into Chicago time. Update on the agreement with CVSD regarding security. Did you get an updated? Okay, so we'll look at the draft that they send over from the meeting Fritz, Mary, and I went to. There were some concrete changes that I think
Oh, good.
reflect the concerns that were raised at the last select board meeting. One of them is going to be clarified that it's unarmed security that the school is requesting to have on the grounds. The other is they'll be splitting up the categories of elections from, instead of an anticipated election of 150 or less, now it'll be 300 or less, just to be very more clear that it's meant for minor elections versus major elections. And the major elections will be spelled out, town meeting and November general elections. So those will be the two different types of elections.
It offered that they're emptying the parking lot for the town meeting this time. So I think we should just add that as every time kind of thing. We presented a couple of positions, or at least I did, that didn't even think that we should be paying for it, but I didn't get any more.
No, it also came out of the discussion right at the end of the meeting that we'll be working in the future to come up with a communication model that that works.
Yeah.
So offsite. So I think that was a productive meeting. We'll try and get that certainly within the packets, but if we get that draft sooner, we'll send it out to people to look at. Employee performance review, discussion of timing, procedure, and format.
So I included in the packet the process that was used the last time there were performance reviews, which was 2018. So committees were formed and there was immediate, usually immediate supervisor did a one-on-one and then the committee did additional reviews.
I think, Carolyn, should that be under the select board, senior center director? It's one of the only opportunities we get to talk with her on
I think in the past, the liaison to the senior center board was a member of the select board and he participated in that. So I don't know if that currently is the case or not.
And the review committee for the recreation department probably shouldn't be the rec chair.
Yeah, I think that's been changed.
Can we put something in here that says what they do?
For the review?
Well, just for this list here, I mean, when I look at it and I see Carolyn,
Oh, the job.
what job is it?
What position?
Oh, okay.
So adding a column for a position.
Okay.
And Nicole, immediate supervisor, select board, vice chair. Is that what we're?
This must have been updated annually because that was a change that happened and
Aaron's name's still on there.
Right, this is, updated annually, except it didn't, we didn't do it in 2019, so I think at that point, Matt, you were the vice chair, and you
Right.
did the review for Nicole.
Yeah, and that was when the position changed from coordinator to director. That was in the job description change. So we made that adjustment to this performance appraisal process to be consistent with the job description.
Right, so I guess
It's Frank now.
okay, so it's always going to be the vice chair.
It can be.
Unless you want to change it.
No, it's fine with me. It doesn't bother me, but.
It should be somebody on the board based on the job description.
I mean, as long as we've got it on there, you know, it's whoever it is, but. You know. But I don't mind being the supervisor. It doesn't bother me. If you wanna do it, that's fine. If you wanna list it as the chair, that's
For
fine.
job description, says she reports to the chair.
So I would.
Oh,
say-
that- oh, yeah.
So I would say we follow the job description.
Definitely. Strike vice.
Yep. Good call.
I still feel that we need a little more conversation about the senior center. Carolyn, who does she report to? What's her job description?
And she reports to me, but the senior center board has a lot of input in terms of what she does day to day.
I just don't feel like there's much of a connection there with the board.
Well, I'm the liaison, and so I've been going to their board meetings. And
They're fun.
I usually go on Tuesdays anyway to Spanish class. So we try and get over there.
Take one out of these.
Yeah, I guess we have specific select board members' names for Aaron and Dara. And Aaron's now Daniel.
Right.
We should have Daniel put in instead of Aaron, and then we gotta take out Lane on the select board. And I think I would put in instead of that, I think I'd put if you wanted to do the.
Chair or?
Well, for review committee, we can leave it as,
Wasn't it everyone?
I mean, it was everyone.
PC and ZBA chair?
It was the PC chair, the ZBA chair, and.
ZBA vice chair?
And it was the vice chair, but it doesn't have to be. But it could be another ZBA member.
Got
I mean,
it.
I put it out to the board this year to choose who they wanted to come in.
And he got the short straw?
Well, he was part of the hiring.
Oh, yeah,
So
right.
he was knowledgeable with what the employee was when he came into on hire and knows and has a good idea of his progress so far.
So that one would be select board, PC chair, dean, ZBA plus one. ZBA
Well, it
chair
doesn't,
plus
it
one.
doesn't have, I don't know if we have to have it on there. I mean, as long as the ZBA chair is there, I mean, I think that would be what the committee has to be, and then there could be more. Because, I mean, the review committee ended up, I mean, Dean was in there, and Daniel was there, I mean, for Daniel, and
So is it the whole select board or just the select board chair for the town zoning administrator and town planner?
Well, that one's already done.
Oh, wow, that's true. Yeah, that's the.
It was the whole
Take
select
that
board.
one off.
right, I think it should be the whole select board.
Okay.
I mean, that would be the review committee, whether they show up or not is their choice.
Okay. So for town planner, select board,
The chairman of the.
PC
planning-
chair.
Yeah, and I mean, it could be the,
I mean, Daryl doesn't work as much with the zoning board, I don't
right,
think.
but Daniel doesn't work with the planning commission that much.
Right, but there is the statute that, I think the planning commission recommends the appointment of the zoning administrator.
Right.
So they also recommend the reappointment. Yeah, if you want the ZBA,
Doesn't have to be. I mean, the main thing is that we have a review committee that knows, you know, that, well, some of them have been here long enough to know when he was hired, Daryl, particularly, so.
it could be PC vice chair as well, if you,
It could be. It could be.
Yeah.
I mean, these I think are more of the ones that are kind of, known that should be part of this process, where it doesn't mean that you couldn't invite more people in.
Yeah.
I think just gives the select board an idea of who's supposed to be in the review committee.
okay, maybe I'll do one more, I mean, do a revision to this and run it by you again at a future meeting.
That'd be great.
And again, do we want to have somebody on the review committee for any of the other positions? I mean, anybody from the senior center, anybody from the library? I mean, should there be a representative from the select board on that committee?
Certainly the senior center.
I don't know if we're party to it, but we should talk more about that.
I mean, I think in the past, the select board liaison has been involved in that, yep.
Okay.
It's been invited. So.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Change the date of select board's second meeting in February. I think we've talked about it, but maybe this is official. So I'll be out of town on the 24th and was hoping we could have a select board meeting on the 17th.
I'm fine,
Okay.
No, I'm fine with it.
Does that need a motion?
Thought you were gonna do it in March.
No, good luck.
Move it to March.
What, March 2nd, really?
Sure.
2 in a row. Okay. Does that need a motion or not really?
I don't think so.
Minutes for January 27th. Now we're catching up.
I do have something on 104. But I'll wait till,
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes of January 27th as may be amended.
Second?
Second.
Third.
Line 124, you said?
I'm sorry, 104.
104.
104.
Yeah. It should say savings of about $2,000 a year.
Yeah.
And also consistency with the town plan, and also town plan goals are the reasons to move forward. That's all. And it's also the sentence that starts, the town can exit the agreement anytime. That's not true.
What line is that?
Conditionally true, but
It's conditional. You have to find it. You have to find a,
equally credit-worthy
yeah.
off-taker.
What was that? Or take out at any time?
Yeah, I guess take out at any
Under
time.
certain circumstances,
Yeah, but you have to find an equally credible.
right, I'm just trying to describe the words that would.
Yeah, I mean, this makes it sound like we can leave it any time, and that's just not correct.
With conditions.
With conditions.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go along with that. That's good.
Just simple.
Yeah, right. take a look at 221 also, isn't that, there's a 16% increase in the budget of the town clerk, right? You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I can just take that off. So instead of in the town clerk's office,
Yeah.
it should be the budget of the town clerk.
Yes.
You kind of think you can keep in the town clerk's office, but
Oh.
add to the town clerk's budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
Little change on line 157. I'm assuming that was Matt. Fritz and Mary will meet with Gene Jensen
Yes.
instead of saying he. You should have caught that.
I saw it. It's crazy. 224, Matt defended money, set aside 4, just add an F.
I think on line 154, where it said Fritz said this should be replaced by restricted use. It was never discussed. Restricted use by the town,
154?
yes.
Instead of this. say-
Restricted use by the town
Oh,
was never discussed. Yeah, I made a correction. Didn't happen much.
I didn't go watch the VCAM, although I should have, line 151. I thought my statement was, he also spoke of the concern of the militarization of the school and elections being forced on the town.
So you just add concern?
That was my concern.
Yeah.
That was happening. And in the meeting, they are gonna specify that it's unarmed security.
Good.
I didn't think like that till you said that night. Now something went on. Just would be awful.
I mean, our constable's there.
Yeah. I will move the minutes as corrected.
I already did that.
I think we have it.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Just a vote.
Yep. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Select board updates. Want to start with the prohibition of firearms?
I really agrees with the assessment that the ordinance is inconsistent, is
Federal law?
well, state law.
State law.
The state, yeah, 24, 2291 and 2295. allow towns to regulate the use but not the possession of firearms. So the ordinance should be amended to reflect that.
Let's do that next meeting. There's no reason to waste any
I
time.
have to say, probably not, it's not gonna be ready for the 17th. It could be ready for the first meeting in March.
Going on vacation.
Okay, as soon as possible, I guess. And that's also we're gonna need to take down the sign, like, change the signage?
Yeah.
Was
I believe
another,
so.
You can say no hunting, I mean,
Right.
I mean, I think are you recommending that they add to the sign, so where it says firearms, to put on something that says discharge or use? Like, Jenny?
Our committee had a meeting last week and had a little bit of discussion about the sign, the brochure. The brochure is pretty simple because it involves just a change in our document. The sign is a little bit different because it's incorporated into the sign. I think the park committee would like a little bit of time to figure out what to put on the signs or what to have for wording. Hunting is not allowed in the park, it's posted. And I think maybe, from our discussion last week, it seems that people would like to spend a little bit more time on the wording of the sign itself, and it's also going to require some, that we have to, maybe, it's not a repaint the sign, you know, it's going to have to be fixed when the sign is changed or something crossed out or, I don't know. But anyway, the wording was something that was still under discussion, what we wanted to do about that.
what is, no,
has anyone communicated back to the gentleman who raised this issue?
He's here tonight.
There you go.
I used to canoe with you. In the northern Vermont Peninsula.
I know.
Yeah, I would just say, since the last meeting, I did have a chance, I spoke with the state director of the Nature Conservancy in regards to how her organization dealt with this issue and signage and stuff. And it just doesn't show up on their signs. Word firearms doesn't show up. They do regulate hunting on their properties, but they don't use anything with the word firearms because of that statute.
yeah, and also I was thinking about it more too. I mean, I think technically, like a muzzleloader isn't a firearm and neither is a crossbow. So, you know, I think the important part is that the sign doesn't contradict state law.
Yeah, that's right.
That's number one. And then two, having the time for the committee to come up with what they want the sign to present and message. But I think we,
One of the thoughts of was that you don't put all that information in there that might be in the ordinance. It's, but maybe, I mean, if we want to make sure that people are safe and people aren't hunting in the park, and want to have some wording that expresses, gives people an idea of what they can and can't do in the park, but not necessarily have to maybe list the whole firearms, what's in the ordinance or what the wording of the ordinance, it doesn't have to say exactly that.
Right. There's wording within the law that says, that's particular to use and projectiles. I'm assuming something to that effect, so. Because, I mean, they were talking about, I mean, everything, including like fireworks and stuff, from what I understand. Is that,
Well, I gave the packet that I gave the board last month had photocopies of the statute in it.
Right.
So I don't want to talk off the top of my head because I might
right,
get it wrong.
I'm trying not to, but I mean.
There was also a picture of the sign at the refuge. And so
Right.
from my perspective, as the person brought up, the sign issue could be solved just by painting over the line that says no firearms. And then you're done.
Yeah, at least
You're in
for,
compliance.
I think, right, in compliance for the short term, I think
And
that's
that's all you
important.
need to do to the sign. I mean, it's been 22 years that the town, perhaps unwittingly, has been out of compliance with state laws.
Right.
I think that we should get it right when we fix it.
And maybe there could be, instead of, like you said, if that was taken off from the sign, a sign wouldn't have to be replaced. And you could also later on put an additional sign, a smaller one that pertains to this particular subject. If you want to try to inform visitors of what they actually can and cannot do.
Or a new sign, but I think the important thing is that as quickly as the town can, we come in, our messaging is compliant with state law. And then taking the time to come up with the messaging for the park that makes sense for the committee, I think would, you know, be at whatever pace the committee wants.
Yep.
They can white that out.
That's it. I agree. Let the committee decide what is best for their location, according to the rules.
And you should be in the loop on that, right?
Yeah, I think we will.
Yeah, just consulting.
I'm still really confused. Why did this come up again?
Uh,
Why did a 22-year non-compliance? I'm just like, even from the last meeting, I'm still really confused. Why?
Yeah, it was just brought to our attention.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like, did you like just read the ordinance and be like, hey, this is.
No,
I'm
this
just
gentleman.
really curious.
Yeah.
You just read the ordinance, it's like, oh, that is.
Well, yeah, I mean, I before I moved to Charlotte, I was a Burlington resident. I remember years back in Burlington, there was a big push to ban guns and bars, and it was voted on in town meeting, and then they found out it has to be approved by the state legislature, so.
And the legislature didn't
No.
approve it.
It didn't go any further.
It was a.
So, when I saw the sign, well, you know, recreating in refuge, I remembered that. And like, wait a minute.
Oh, so you were walking in the refuge and you saw the sign and you remembered the Burlington.
Yeah.
Okay, see, I was just trying to figure out like where the connection came from. Okay. Thank you. I have no more questions. I was just like, what happened? It was like so, thank you.
Great. Well, thank you. Charlotte Solar?
People have not returned my phone calls. And so
Imagine that.
I know, imagine that. I was gone for a bit. I'm gonna get on it again, and the purpose of that is to understand what the position of the department is and what the Department of Agriculture is, because that will help us inform what position we should be taking. And I will just get on it this week.
Okay. Thank you.
What about this?
Oh.
Fell through the cracks.
Yeah. RFP for the bridge repair?
Yeah, actually, I went to a meeting with FEMA and Department of Public Safety, and the recommendation was wait until we've had some more discussion with FEMA, because there might be more bells and whistles to add in the RFP.
Okay.
So in the meantime, I am reaching out to the Vermont River Division of, I forget what they're called, but they oversee the rivers, because we may need a permit to do the work in the river where the abutments are.
Who advised that?
Regional planning, or actually the Department of Public Safety said just check with, the state, just to let them know, see what's.
I don't
know if we're gonna be below water or everything's above.
Unless it's done during a flood, it should be able to be
Above
done. I thought Stantec addressed it.
Oh, okay, in their scoping report.
Their scope, that they said they didn't think it'd be required, because you're within the bounds of the existing abutment, and you're not gonna be in the water.
Okay.
Okay. I was just Just checking. We were in the process.
Matt, you also wanted to discuss the advertising of appointed positions with a stipend?
Oh, so is that in our packet?
It's on the table.
So the canine control officer is a 1-year appointment?
Yes.
Did you share with her the email from a citizen?
Yeah, I did. She said she has called her, she was going to call her to lunch. She said, yeah, there was miscommunication over the weekend, misfiring, and she was going to reach out to her. She said she would. Yeah.
Okay.
Where is the
Top of the list.
town constable?
Oh, no. So that's a 2-year appointment, and that it's not up this year. So I did look at at least some previous listings, and it did not include the canine control officer or the constable.
That was my memory, is that when it came to volunteer positions, the town for the last 4 years, maybe 5 years, has been not rubber stamping lifetime appointments and advertising that there is a term that will be up, and if people are interested, to let the town know, and then we would consider a new person and an incumbent.
Which is the purpose of this notice.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't remember doing that for the canine control officer or the constable. And I thought the difference was that those were paid positions. They were more like appointed employees than the volunteer structure. So when I saw the email, my thought was the status quo would remain in place rather than changing that.
Okay.
But I thought might as well see what the board wants to do.
The other thing is do we want to, I mean, you have it separated to unfilled seats and the following boards and positions have seats with terms ending. Would we just want to put all those in instead of saying these are all the terms, these are all the positions that are available at this particular time?
These are all open, that needs to be clarified. These are all.
These are all filled and
But the
and their
terms
terms
expired.
end.
Okay.
Where there's only one on here has, well, there should be more than one because the Conservation Commission.
Right, because that term ends in 2020, April 2020. I thought there's no purpose in listing it above as unfilled, just list it with the rest.
That's what I'm saying, should we even list them as filled or unfilled?
I think the distinction, when people, I guess the park committee has a seat that's completely vacant and no one's vying for it. I mean, no one currently.
So the way to read this is, let's say, Planning Commission, does that mean that the two seats are up?
Correct.
Okay, that's how to read it. Okay, and it's like the Conservation Commission, that means there's 3 seats that are coming vacant.
Technically, yeah, one of them actually isn't filled, but because the expiration date is 2020.
Okay.
I put it there.
All right.
So how many people, how many are in the Park and Wildlife? How many committee members?
There's, I believe it's either 7 or 8, and it's filled except for one. There's one vacancy.
Conservation.
You appointed one tonight, and there's one more vacancy. And there actually have been 2 people that expressed interest in that vacancy, but they're going to go to a Conservation Commission meeting first. I think that has, I want to say 7 members. I actually.
I can actually look it up if I need to.
This is really amazing how much volunteerism there is, especially reading in the news that, you know, there's a lot of open elected positions that don't have anyone running, but maybe we should just convert those into volunteer positions and
Well, I think that's
better
I
average.
think that's something we're gonna, isn't that something we usually do after election day, is we make a list of the unfilled
And can appoint
positions that are normally voted
Or
in.
the other thing you can do is you could just write in all your enemies.
Well, I think Mary Redley, you need 30, yeah. 30 wins
I
this.
just write Frank in all the empty ones.
Here's the Park and Wildlife Committee has 9 seats, and eight of them are filled.
Energy, while you're there.
Energy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4.
This says there's 4 seats, there will be 4 seats open.
Right, so they have
There's four
7
seats
members
where the terms
plus
are ending.
a student member.
That's much better.
And the rec commission while you're there.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
7?
No, I think there's.
Yeah, 7. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6.
Can the date be changed?
Actually, there's 8. There should be, I think there's actually a vacancy on the rec commission.
So the idea of having them come and talk with us, get to meet new board members, we get to say, thank you very much for doing what you're doing.
Well, that's the idea of this, is so that even an existing member who wants to continue, we get to meet them and interview
good.
them again.
And thank them, yes.
Which is, and thank them for their service, and
Doesn't encourage a tenure. It doesn't encourage tenure on a commission. I think this was a result of a number of people saying, hey, I've been trying to get on this committee, how come I can't?
Yeah. Dean, right at the end, there's a closed parentheses, but I don't see the open parentheses.
Which line?
The last line, right before the period, after town hall.
Oh, yeah, please call. Oh, yeah, you're right, okay, yeah, good.
maybe they're just taken out.
And it has to be Friday the 13th? So that's just me.
Yeah.
I'm superstitious like that. Looks, okay.
It was Thursday the 12th.
I don't know.
Okay, I just wanted to say thank you, Dean, for putting a shout out on Front Porch Farm for Junior.
Okay.
Was at a minimum my 19th snowstorm that I've been through, and I had at least 11 people come in on Friday. I was there from 6:30 to 6:30. At least, at a minimum, 11 people came in and said, Charlotte roads are the best. I mean, it was really cool. But what's really just great about what I don't think a lot of people know is how much thought process all snow plowing people are, what they're doing, what they're thinking, why they go at a certain time here and a certain time there. Just really remarkable to watch not only our town team, but the rest of the.
Did a lot of people stay off the roads, Junior, because it was so bad? Yeah.
I also noticed that at one of the intersections of another town that uses primarily salt, when we got that really cold snap after this, they were using so much salt that it created like a really slippery slush on half the tires.
Yeah.
whereas Charlotte still had the hard, dry snow and then the sand giving grip. It was one of those instances where it was nice to have that.
Yeah, because, you know, it's basically, it's just, you know, it's all fun, you know, we were gonna have the rain, and that was coming, and it's hard, you know, without using salt. Let's say the other towns don't just use salt either, they're using other stuff that's even harder than salt, like calcium chloride, chlorine, you know, they speed on, all that stuff.
You do well with what you've got.
I think they're okay.
That's great.
It was so bad that I canceled Friday hockey. That's just letting you know how bad it was.
I was driving all around the night.
Poor bastard. I thought you told me they canceled school.
It did. I was in my pickup and I was driving everywhere. I went up to
Why were you doing
South
that?
Burlington. Oh, it was my wife. She wanted to go places.
All right.
And she
no.
didn't want to drive her car. So she said, "You take me."
Well, all right.
Okay.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes, dear.
All those in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye?
Hi.
Yep.
Okay, Bob, what's that second business?
There.
It's a good meeting.
What would you have to talk about if we voted up that net metering?
What?
What would you have to talk about this time if we voted up the net metering?